Welcome to Daily Wire Backstage's live coverage of Donald Trump's address to Congress. Some people will call it a State of the Union. Some people will get onto us if we do call it a State of the Union. It's very controversial. It will look exactly like a State of the Union, and I think that's really what matters. I'm joined here in Nashville by Andrew Klavan and Michael Knowles. Of course, I'm your host, Jeremy Boring, and joining us remotely from the Capitol itself tonight, we have Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. There's an empty chair, which we were saving for Elijah, but it has now been filled, and the man filling it is the former acting director of ICE and the current border czar in the second Trump administration, Tom Homan. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
If you are not a Daily Wire Plus member, here's what you're missing. Ad-free, uncensored shows from the most trusted names in the conservative media, plus Andrew Klavan. If you're not watching Daily Wire Plus, you're not getting the full show, plus exclusive investigative journalism, first access to what's next. And if you join now, you can take part in the live chat where you can ask us questions during the live show, dailywire.com/subscribe. Obviously, a really big night, the sort of triumphal return of Donald Trump to the Capitol as now the 47th president. What can we expect tonight, Ben?
Well, I mean, I think that you're going to expect a very enthusiastic Republican reception. We had heard from the speaker that we are expecting a bunch of Democrats to show up with empty egg cartons, and they're going to wave them at the president about egg prices.
That'll show him.
Noisemakers. And they're going to try and disrupt as many things as possible, but they've been unable to disrupt the agenda thus far. And so I think they're going to have a rough time of it tonight. But, you know, we'd be remiss. We don't get to sit with the border czar very often. So, border czar Tom Homan, what are you expecting tonight?
I expect President Trump to educate American people on the facts of the border, that what he did in 3 weeks, Biden administration failed to do in 4 years. We had the lowest border numbers in the history of the United States border, and that's not an exaggeration. Last month, we had the fewest number of encounters in the history of this nation. And President Trump did that in 4 weeks. So think what he's going to do in the next 47 months. So we got the most secure border ever right now. We got a little bit more work to do. ICE had record amounts of arrests in the interior. So as the president secures the border, here's what I hope people take away tonight. When you have 97% less people coming, Border Patrol's now on the border, 100% engaged, 100% on duty, not changing diapers, not making baby formula, not making hospital runs, means we seize more fentanyl, less Americans die from fentanyl. We arrest more traffickers, so less women and children are sex trafficked. We got less no-inspected terrorists getting away in this country. The gotaways alone, under Biden, averaged 1,800 gotaways a day that we know of. The other day, it's 41. And we're going to get that down to 0. So we're going to have total operational control of our southern border. Be the first time in history.
Just to state the obvious, so when the media tries to claim that, well, the deportation numbers aren't as high as what Trump promised, the point is that the border is being secure, so we're not having the people come in, right?
Exactly. They're counting the numbers of what was removed. Look, President Trump could remove 90% of people coming across the board. His deportation numbers are still going to be lower than Biden, even if Biden deported 10%, because they brought millions of people in. Yep. Understand, in 1 month, total of 8,000. 8,000 in 1 month. And under Joe Biden, we're doing 11,000 a day, right?
I don't mean...
It's a big game changer. And I say every day, and I'll say it tonight, President Trump proves every day why he's the greatest president in my lifetime.
It doesn't seem possible that the administration could have made this accomplishment, because I was under the impression that it was impossible to secure the border unless we voted for Joe Biden's comprehensive immigration reform package. So somewhere I just got bad information.
Well, look, the President Trump did it before. This administration knew how to fix it. Yeah. And they just didn't choose to fix it. This isn't, what Biden did was not mismanagement, was not incompetence. It's by design. They knew exactly what they're doing. He ran on open borders. He said he's going to shut down ICE detention. He said he's going to put a moratorium on deportations. He says he's going to give free health care to illegal aliens. The promises he made, we knew the whole country, the whole world's going to come to the greatest nation on earth when you're offering all these giveaways with no consequences. They knew how to fix it. They refused to do it. Again, what they failed to do in 4 years, Donald Trump did in 3 weeks.
You know, Mr. Homan?
Tom Homan. So,
Mr. Homan, Ben just mentioned that the Democrat lawmakers are planning to interrupt the speech with all sorts of noisemakers and make a general nuisance of themselves. I know you're busy, sir, but would it be possible for you to deport them as well, please?
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. Because, I've been fighting with the Democrat side of the House for a long time, but especially the last couple of days, that there's going to be members of Congress sitting in the audience tonight who are educating criminal illegal aliens how to evade law enforcement. They say, well, we're educating them as their constitutional rights. Okay, claim what you want. We all know what you're doing. You're educating those how to evade law enforcement. Don't open your doors. Don't answer questions. Hide. And these are Congress people that begged that these people had a right to claim asylum. They got a right to see a judge. They got a right to due process. And that happened. They had that due process. But 90% have been order removed. So if we don't execute the final decision of the courts, there is no due process. It means nothing. You can't demand due process and ignore the final decision of the courts. If we do that, they might as well just shut down the immigration courts, take the border patrol off the border. There's no consequences. You can't ask to implement a system of laws and ignore the final result. And that's why we're going to have a massive deportation operation, because millions of people cross this border, 90% will get order removal. We got to remove them. So any member of Congress who wants to educate, and we made it clear the Trump administration is going to concentrate in this, the worst of the worst public safety threats, right? I can't believe any member of Congress wants to educate an illegal alien who's been convicted of a serious offense. He's got order removal at the due process at great taxpayer expense, and wants to educate him how to evade arrest. To me, they ought to resign their position as a member of Congress, because they're doing the complete opposite what American taxpayers expect them.
Can I ask you what about the Democrat mayors and governors who have claimed, in some cases claimed that they're going to harbor illegal aliens in their own homes? Have you found that they're actually doing this? What are they doing to interfere with your operations? Or are they kind of getting in line? What's going on there?
They haven't crossed the line yet. But if they cross the line, they're going to be prosecuted. You can stand aside and watch ICE do your job. ICE is making their community safer. And I find it hard to believe every day that there's any mayor or governor or city council person that doesn't want public safety threats removed from the public. It's in their more responsibility to community safety. If you don't want to help us, get the hell out of the way. Well, I've warned numerous mayors and governors, don't cross that line. If you impede us, that's a felony. And Pam Bondi, we'll ask Pam Bondi to prosecute. If you harbor or conceal an illegal alien, knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE, that's a felony. In my career, I've arrested U.S. citizens for harboring and concealing an illegal alien in a workplace or a home. If I can prosecute a U.S. citizen for doing it, why can't we prosecute a politician who does the same thing? So, I think we got a strong AG in Pam Bondi, and if they cross that line, we should prosecute and make an example out of them.
To your point earlier, sir, it's perfectly reasonable, perfectly understandable why someone living south of our border in particular would want to get to the greatest country in the history of the world. It's a no-brainer. When you add further incentives through all of our government programs, all of the handouts, the open invitations that Joe Biden and his administration were putting out to people to come to the country, you can't be surprised when they do. At the same time, the idea that American politicians would engage in harboring those people, it seems to me, it's very easy to throw around words like treason in political discussion. But when you're actually using your position as an elected representative of the American people to help criminal aliens in the country at the expense of your own constituents, how is that not a treasonous offense? When Joe Biden shuts down the Remain in Mexico program and says, no, instead, we're going to bring millions of people into the country who don't need to be here. We already have a solution. The first Trump administration implemented the solution. We're going to remove the solution. How is that not treasonous?
Look, I think a lot of what they did is treasonous. Take, for example, the Gotaways, right? They overwhelmed the Border Patrol where many nights, 70% of agents were pulled off the line to make sandwiches, change diapers, make baby formula, make hospital runs, dealing with this humanitarian crisis they created on purpose.
Yeah.
And the Border Patrol is overwhelmed. So you got 30% of Border Patrol agents left on the line. Then the criminal cartels will send a group of 100 family units in one area, knowing that 30% are going to seize that opportunity to deal with a humanitarian crisis there, which the cartels create gaps. So you got 2.2 million known gotaways. You got to ask yourself, why did 2 million plus people pay more to get away? Because you pay the cartels one amount of money to get to the border. The cartel's job ends when you get to the border because you turn yourself in a green uniform. You get released within 24 hours. You get a free airline ticket to the city of your choice. You get put in a free hotel room. You get 3 meals a day and free medical care. After about 3 months, you get work authorization, the very reason they came here. So why did 2 million people pay more not to take advantage of that giveaway program? Why did they pay more to get away? Because they didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. These are going to be people who are trafficking in women and children. They're going to be ones carrying the fentanyl. And they're going to be ones coming from a country sponsoring terror. Now, under Trump in 4 years, we arrested a total of 14 people on terrorist watch lists. 14 in 4 years. This Biden administration had 14 in a day. I mean, they were up over 400. So the question is, Border Patrol has arrested people from 181 different countries. Many of these countries are sponsored with terror. They've arrested over 400. How many of that 2.2 million came from countries sponsored terror? If you think it's zero, you're a moron. So this is the biggest national security vulnerability I've seen in my lifetime. Even FBI Director Wray, who I don't like, even he agreed this is the biggest national security vulnerability he's seen. A lot of red flags. What they did when they purposely opened this border up is create the biggest national security vulnerability this nation's ever seen. And we know there's people here that want to do us harm. We know national security threats enter this country. We're monitoring some we don't know where they are. So when you use the word treasonous, I agree with you, because they, on purpose, created this open border, which resulted in a significant national security concern, national security vulnerability. We all know something's coming. The intelligence community believes something's going to be coming. And thank God we got President Trump in the Oval Office to deal with it when it happens.
Yeah, and when you talk about this, it's very clear that the Biden administration, it was an act of will for them to leave the border this way. I was talking to you before we were on air. I was actually down at the border in Arizona. There's a Native American reservation right along the border. There's no fencing there because the Native American reservation doesn't want there to be fencing there. And so basically it's wide open. And the Biden administration, I was told by Border Patrol, had assigned them to process people as a number one priority. The drug cartels would essentially drive up with a truck filled with people. They would unload them at the border. There was actually a button they could hit at the border that would call Border Patrol to them. Border Patrol would then have to take them for processing, and that would leave the rest of the border completely wide open for the predations of the drug cartels. I think one part of the story that hasn't been told here is just how much the Biden administration enriched the drug cartels. The drug cartels made literally billions of dollars off of human and trafficking and drug smuggling during the course of the Biden administration.
No one celebrated that election more than the criminal cartels. They knew they were back in business. The reason there's so much violence in Mexico right now, because the cartels are making more money than they've ever made in sex trafficking women and children, alien smuggling, and the smuggling of narcotics. Now, there's a lot of discontent in Mexico because President Trump has taken billions of dollars out of their pockets when he secures that border. So I think you're going to see more violence on the border. I don't think they're going to go away quietly. I think President Trump did the right thing designating them terrorist organizations, because these cartels have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. But what they did to the border was on purpose. I agree 100%. And here's why I know it's on purpose. We never talk about this. Let me just mention this. When Barack Obama was president, Joe Biden was vice president, Secretary Mayorkas was the deputy secretary. We had a surge of family groups coming across the border. How did we stop it? We built family residential centers. We held them long enough to see a judge. 91% lost their case. We put them in an airplane, send them home, and the border numbers dumped. So Mayorkas knows how we fixed it, and Biden knows how we fixed it. So what do they do when he becomes president, Mayorkas becomes secretary? They don't detain him. They don't make him see a judge. They don't deport him. They did exactly the opposite of what proved worked when he was vice president and Secretary Mayorkas was deputy secretary. So this wasn't an accident. They did the exact opposite of what they knew we succeeded with when President Obama was in office. So this wasn't, again, this was by design. They knew exactly what they were doing. And the reason they didn't detain them is because when an alien's in detention, they get a hearing within 40 days at top, which means in 40 days, that 91% be ordered removed and they go home. That's not what they wanted. So they released them to NGOs, put them in a hotel room, because once you're out of ICE custody, it's called the non-detained docket. Non-detained docket takes anywhere from 3 years to 9 years, depending on what city you're in.
Wow.
And they knew in that 3 to 9 years, they'll get 1 or 2 U.S. citizen kids, they'll get equities here, and hopefully a Democratic Congress and Democratic president that will reward them an amnesty. This is why they didn't detain him. They don't want him removed, so they figure they put him on the non-custody docket with the immigration court. Their cases are so far down the road that there'll be a change in administration and they can award him an amnesty. That's exactly what was their plan. And thank God we changed that in November and got President
Mr. Holman, you mentioned just now that President Trump redefined these organizations as foreign terrorist organizations. And a lot of people hear that and they think, well, that's just a kind of a new way of describing them. But obviously, that is an official classification that then frees up certain American resources to deal with them. So in case there are any face-tattooed gangsters watching the stream tonight, practically speaking, what does it mean that the cartels can anticipate now that they're designated this way?
If you're involved in cartels anyway, if you're transporting for them, if you're moving money for them, if you're helping these cartels in any way, then you are part of a terrorist organization, and we'll charge you with terrorist-related crimes, which has significant penalties. Being designated terrorist brings the whole of the U.S. government on, I'm including the military. We're not just going to attack them on our southern border, we're going to attack them across the globe. Jalisco cartels in 43 countries around the globe. Not only are they moving drugs across the border, that's the way it used to be. Now they have a presence in every major city in this country. So on top of smuggling narcotics in this country, they're taking over the interior distribution of narcotics within our largest cities. We're going to attack them on the border. We're going to attack them in the interior United States. We're going to attack them in every country there around the world with the assistance of the other countries. This designation is put them on notice. We're going to use the whole might of the United States government to take them out. We're going to, and the first thing we do is take the money. If they don't have money, they have no power. They can't buy the Mexican military. They can't buy Mexican legislation. They can't buy Mexican judges. So we're going to shut them down one piece at a time. What President Trump did by designating a terrorist organization, take the first step of wiping these cartels off the face of the earth. You know who's going to be more grateful than anybody? The country of Mexico. Because I've said this many times, there's a lot of corruption in Mexico, whether it's the military, law enforcement, or government officials. Many of them didn't choose to be corrupt, but cartels will tell you, you are going to do this or we're going to kill you and your family. To take the cartels out of Mexico and demolish them and incinerate them and take them off the face of the earth, we're going to free Mexico. We're going to free Mexico. So Mexico wants to be under the control of the cartels. They can operate in a free society. So I think no one's be more grateful than Mexico.
Border Czar Tom Holman, thank you for making time with us. It's a huge night. We're very grateful for the work you're doing, very grateful for the work that President Trump is doing, and just looking forward to actually having some sanity and law and order on the southern border. Thank you.
I appreciate the thanks. Well, let's give the thanks to the men and women wearing the green uniform are down there 24/7. While I'm sitting at this event tonight, there's some Border Patrol agent standing on a dirt trail someplace. It's going to take somebody on, whether it's just an illegal alien or a heavily armed drug smuggler. These are the men and women who sit on that border 24/7 while we're laying in bed sleeping safe at night. Thank the ICE agents who are out there, you know, with a Kevlar vest and a gun on their hip, going to sanctuary cities, arresting bad people because they couldn't arrest them in the jail. And we got leakers telling people where these operations are. Let's pray for the men and women of ICE that they go home safe to their families every night. There's the real heroes. I'm grateful to be in. I got a great president, but I want to thank the men and women on the front line who are doing the job. Steve Miller is the architect, brilliant, probably one of the smartest men I ever met. We strategize, we come up with plans, we come up with the methods of what we want done. But the men and women carrying the badge and gun, God bless them. Let's keep them safe because they're doing God's work on the front line.
Amen.
Amen. Ben, it's hard to follow that with an ad read, but if anyone can do it.
Folks, I need to tell you about a great way you can improve your quality of life. It's something I've been doing for years that I cannot recommend enough. Is it transcendental meditation classes? Nope. Me meditating? It sounds unbelievably boring, so it's not going to happen. Is it Reiki energy healing? I mean, that looks relaxing, but nope. I'm not going to be doing that. I don't know about you, but that kind of stuff is not for me. So what do I do to improve my health and energy if wacky self-care schemes are out? Well, it isn't complicated. It's Bull & Brand sheets, baby. With their 100% organic cotton sheets, I get a great sleep every single night, and I wake up refreshed to tackle the day. You ever wonder why you're feeling groggy and frankly resentful toward the world every second you're forced to be awake? It's because your cheapo store brand sheets are holding you back. Getting sleep is one of the most important things you can and must do to be a functioning, happy human being. I can even rest when I'm on the road with their wonderful waffle throw. I do not travel without it, not even joking. It's in my suitcase. It's truly the easiest thing you can do to feel energized and refreshed. Feel the difference for yourself, gang. Try Bull and Branch sheets for an entire month. If they don't change the way you sleep, you can send them back for a full refund. For a limited time only, get 20% off plus free shipping at bullandbranch.com/backstage. Now's your chance. Change the way you sleep with Bull and Branch. That's Bull and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/backstage to save 20%. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
So quite a treat to have Tom Homan with us, and also a treat that Ben and Matt get to attend this event. And to make it even better is that you had to go to the Joe Biden.
I know this. I'm feeling a little gypped. I mean, I'm very grateful to my friend Congressman Andy Ogles for having me last year. It was very cool to be at the State of the Union. But I had to listen to Joe Biden incoherently scream for like 45 minutes. And you guys get to go to the UFC fight of State of the Union addresses. It's going to be super fun.
Oh, it is going to be great. First of all, I think there's a good shot that President Trump is going to announce this rare earth mineral deal with Ukraine. So that'll be a big win for him. And I think it'll rectify a lot of the breach that happened last Friday in that extraordinarily combative press conference between Zelensky, President Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance. He's obviously going to talk about his accomplishments on immigration that Border Czar Homan just mentioned a moment ago. He's going to be talking about the investments that were just made by a number of companies in America. The TSMC, which is, of course, the gigantic semiconductor maker in Taiwan, has announced they're going to spend $100 billion additionally in the United States. The Honda Civic is now going to be produced entirely in Indiana as opposed to in Mexico. I'm sure he's going to be talking a lot about that. There's been a lot of winning. He's going to talk about DEI. I'm sure he'll talk about Matt's big issue, the issue that if one person really helped push over the line, it was Matt Walsh, the death of men in women's sports. I'm sure he's going to mention that as well. It's been this has been, as we discussed last time we were together, the fastest moving administration in modern American history. I mean, this administration is moving like absolute lightning. It's going to give Trump a lot to talk about. And of course, it's going to get spicy because I would be shocked if there's no dramatics from the fainting couch left out there. Some of them are not showing up. And frankly, to me, that seems like the best tactic for some of them. I think that the ones who are idiots are going to show up and make fools of themselves.
It seems like not showing up, though. They actually get paid to show up. That's what they're there for.
I agree.
It seems like everything they do, every strategy they come up with just sends them further and further into the wilderness. And I grieve for them. I miss them deeply. But I think that if they just continue to protest cutting fraud and waste, if they continue to protest securing the border, if they continue to protest not allowing men into women's sports, I could be gone before there's another Democratic administration, which may be only 10 minutes away, but still, I think that this could be a long, long term in exile.
They seem to have learned absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the members not showing up tonight. But even the Democrat governors who say, no, by golly, we're going to ignore federal law and we're going to force hulking dudes to crack women's skulls. And they elect David Hogg, one of the least likable Democrats, even among Democrats, to be the vice chairman of the party. It just seems like these guys cannot possibly win for losing. I
would like to ask a question of you guys. When I'm listening to Homan talk about the border, this lawlessness, this incredible, it was an invasion. I mean, I know that's like a big word, but it was an invasion allowed by the President of the United States, allowing us to be invaded. And you hear all these theories, they're bringing in voters, that it's the great replacement and all this. Do you think that was the strategy? Was that it, that they just thought that this would turn the demographics?
They told us this in 2004. Ben, you correct me because you probably remember the paper better. It was 04 or 06. There was a very prominent political science paper pushed by the left on this strategy to import people from all over the world and to have a permanent electoral majority. And I don't think they were counting on Trump winning 46% of Hispanics or an increasing number of black male votes or anything like that. Right. But I think they were pretty open about it. I don't think they hid the ball.
Because it's happening in Europe.
I think there's some of that. I also think that there was something else happening too, and that is that there's been this myth in Democratic politics really since 2012 that you could create a permanent minority-majority coalition. And so it was almost a no-loss proposition for them. They figured that they were going to win more Hispanic votes in the United States by opening the vote and by opening the border, and they could simultaneously bring in new voters. And at the same time, they'd be pleasing all of their white liberal college graduates who believe that the United States bears blood guilt for ever having won Texas and California from Mexico. And so it was sort of a win-win for them. And what they didn't understand is that you are now creating a backlash that's going to make for your undoing. I mean, if there's one issue more than any other that really swung the election, it was the illegal immigration issue. And number two was the trans issue. And Democrats are unable to kind of let go of both. But I want to ask my buddy Matt here, because he's been sitting here silently, as is his wont during our backstage. He's always very excited to be here, as we know. And he's even more excited to travel. Matt, do you feel the electricity? Do you feel the energy? Are you just like ecstatic to be here?
I appreciate the pity throwing it to me, so I have something to say. And it's a great honor to be here. We're a little too physically close right now, so it's an uncomfortable physical proximity that I'm not accustomed to. I'm wearing a tie for the first time in 2 years, so that shows you how much I honor it. And there's a pocket square.
I'm going to note that before this, by the way, Matt actually did up his tie. Like a few minutes ago, before we began, Matt had not buttoned his top button.
Well, it's still not buttoned.
Yeah, but you've got the tie tight enough that you can masquerade, and his shirt was pretty loose, and he kind of looked as though, and he had the cup of whiskey in front of him and the glass of whiskey, and he looked as though, he'd worked a long day at the accounting office, and now he'd been finally released to his local pub where he could, just let the tie down a little bit. And that was actually him dressed up. So I'm just going to point that out.
I don't even know if can we drink alcohol where we are right now in these sacred halls?
It's Congress, my friend. I will say it was pretty cool. We met with Speaker Johnson right before this, and he actually took us to take a picture, which I'm sure has now been posted online. And he actually showed us a room that apparently has never been used in the Capitol building, which was a prayer room. It was actually like a prayer room off to the side. It was really cool. It was a beautiful stained glass window of George Washington kneeling in prayer, the famous painting, and emblems from all 50 states.
And George Washington was the last one to use it.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, at least use it for prayer. I mean, I'm hoping that none of the other Congress people discovered it, because the one rule about Congress is you never want to blacklight anything here. It's just a huge mistake. Yeah.
So basically, this is going to be a giant pep rally for the right tonight. And to make it all the more glorious, we're going to be filling up with leftist cheers, left, right, and center. Is there anything being bandied about that we think would be a surprise? Is there anything is Donald Trump going to do anything here tonight that shocks his constituency, or is this pure fan fiction playing out right in front of us tonight?
Well, I think the big floating idea is that you could get an announcement of the Ukraine deal, which might surprise some people because President Trump picked that fellow up and flung him out the window the other day during the Oval Office meeting. But again, these kinds of deals are bigger than just one shouting match in the Oval Office. So you could see that. That would be somewhat surprising. Obviously, President Trump last night implemented these tariffs on Mexico and Canada, which surprised some people, because I think some people believed that the tariffs were merely a negotiating ploy to try to get concessions on fentanyl or border enforcement or whatever. However, I think Trump campaigned on believing in tariffs in terms of economic theory, like in tariffs for the good of the American economy.
Well, not just tariffs themselves, though. Balanced tariffs. In other words, why should we have tariffs on our goods going out and not put tariffs on people coming in? The whole ethos of Trump is we're not your daddy. If we're going to help you, you're going to help us. We want to get paid for what we do. We want you to take part of your own defense. I mean, I've been telling Europeans this for over a decade, that all their wonderful welfare programs that they have and their universal health care that they have is paid for by us because we protect them.
Right, of course. But the one surprise tonight potentially could be that Trump, as Howard Lutnick was suggesting earlier today, Trump could roll back some of those tariffs that he announced last night. So that might be somewhat surprising. Otherwise, I'm expecting the pep rally. I don't know about you guys.
It's too late to buy any index funds tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd be a little surprised if he rolls back the tariffs that quickly. I think that he has to have some sort of headline that he can latch onto in order to do that, some sort of win that he can say that he prized out of Canada or Mexico in order to do that. The one thing about President Trump that I've said many times, but I think you're going to see it play out with regard to these tariffs, is that President Trump likes good headlines and he does not like bad headlines. When the Dow Jones Industrial Average drops by 1,500 points in 2 days, and suddenly the lights start blinking red, I don't think that President Trump is so wedded to the magical idea of tariffs that he won't reverse himself in order to sort of preserve economic health. Yeah, that's one thing. And there had been some rumors. I doubt that he'll do it tonight, but obviously I was pushing very hard today to pardon Derek Chauvin, which I think would be a good move for the country, because while he was convicted on state charges, it wouldn't free him from prison. I do think that it would be very good and salutary for the country for the federal government to make clear that it is not going to hold to account people for crimes they did not commit, and in which the jury was pretty obviously poisoned by everybody surrounding the court. Anybody who thinks that Derek Chauvin got a fair trial, regardless of what you think of the actual outcome of the trial, anybody who pretends that that was even remotely a fair trial or the evidence stacked up to the conviction in that case, I honest to God don't understand what you're thinking, to be fairly frank with you. Again, I think it would be a shocker if President Trump said anything about it tonight, but I would not be surprised if something in the near future is done about it.
Yeah. Well, Ben and Matt, you've got to get to your seats. The show's about to begin. You're sitting with Speaker Johnson's box, as I understand. It's an unbelievable honor. I have no doubt that Drew and I will be invited to the next State of the Union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell Speaker Johnson, we actually met. He and I met right after he was elected. I sat next to him at the first Trump prayer breakfast, and he's forgotten me entirely.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't care. Yeah. You guys have a great night. We'll see you after the president's remarks. Hopefully we're able to get you back. And in the meantime, we're going to look at the people coming in, which is always kind of my favorite part of this. It's like the red carpet of ugly people. when people make their grand entrances into the State of the Union. All right, guys, we'll see you later.
Yeah, bye. Catch you later.
Ben and Matt off to the Speaker's box to hear President Donald Trump make his address to a joint session of Congress. We're seeing all the best people walking into the Capitol as we speak. It's actually kind of fun. I mean, it saw Elon a second ago, and of course, Vice President J.D. Vance and Speaker Mike Johnson already up on the podium, and then a bunch of really sullen-looking Democrats, which makes it...
I can't imagine what's wrong with them.
They are quite colorful, though. It's interesting because in recent years, the Democrats, especially the squad Democrats, have worn white to make themselves look like the suffragettes or something. This year, they're wearing pink. Maybe the purity.
Your femininity.
It's the femininity. Yeah. No one was buying the white
Your
dress.
softness and gentleness in the Democrats.
I noticed that none of them have shaved their heads, though.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're gonna do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Go all the way.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. I like this whole idea of them having noisemakers and like throwing egg
Firecrackers
like
and
this.
things. Yeah.
They can't humiliate themselves anymore. Or at least as far as I'm concerned, they can't humiliate themselves enough to actually humiliate themselves as much as they deserve. So.
Nancy Pelosi is not a young woman.
Well, evil ages you. She's actually only 40. It's just the evil has sucked all the life out of her.
What does it say on that lady's jacket?
We the people.
Huh.
It may have been the 14th Amendment on her sleeve.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not positive, but I think it may have been the text of the 14th Amendment. We're hearing that the president is running just a few minutes late, which I call presidential prerogative.
Of course.
Or
just rudeness.
Wherever the president arrives, he is precisely on time.
That's right.
That is one of the perks of the job.
It's like classifying documents. He just declares at the right time.
It's hard to tell exactly what the Democrats are trying to convey with their coordinated outfits, because the white was supposed to convey women's rights, hearkening back to the suffragettes. The pink, presumably, is more, and we have Melania walking in now, looking much more elegant than any of the Democrats.
Anybody else? Yeah.
But the pink, I suppose, is to communicate women's rights vis-a-vis abortion, I would guess.
Hey, there's been Shapiro and Matt Walsh.
I know them. Wait a second.
I'm certain it has something to do with abortion. It's really it's the only issue they care about.
But I guess that to me again states that the Democrats haven't learned anything from the election, because abortion was supposed to win in the election, and they lost the biggest election that they lost in 20 years. Yeah. So then even this 14th Amendment thing, trying to make an argument that birthright citizenship pertains to anchor babies and illegal aliens, even the New York Times ran a column the other day making a good point that actually it's unclear from the 14th Amendment, and the Supreme Court has never definitively ruled on that. So I don't know. It seems like they're fishing for an issue.
Well, see, usually it's the right who is blind to the culture, but this is a really interesting situation in which the left does not know that shield of invisibility that was created by our corrupt news media has vanished. It's been destroyed by the evil us, and I think that they just don't get it. They do not get that we can see them. They don't get that they're standing there naked and like the whole country is kind of laughing at them.
The president's cabinet arriving now. It's the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and crew. Pete Hegseth, who's kind of a friend of the organization and a fellow Nashville resident with us. Howard Lutnick. People don't know this. Howard Lutnick talked to us one time about buying the DailyWire.
Really?
Not buying it. he wanted to help us take it public at one time.
Can we nationalize it now?
Yeah, well, that would
Then
be.
he's at Congress.
I
That'd be
like
great.
Lutnick. I like his enthusiasm.
I do too. I get a big kick out of Lutnick. He's he actually is Bobby Axelrod. Like they say that the character was actually. They say the character was actually written in part.
Is it really based on
Yeah,
Lutnick? Yeah, that checks out.
based on Howard Lutnick?
His RFK, I'm surprised he showed up because he has measles, I think.
Oh yeah, hearts breaking all over the crunchosphere as he endorsed the mRNA
Except,
vaccine.
did you read the column? So the headline,
Not mRNA.
the measles,
Yeah.
the MMR. So the headline from FoxNews.com was, the measles vaccine is really important and it's crucial to fighting the disease. If you read the column, so the editors write the headline. If you read the column, he never endorses the vaccine.
Really?
And in fact, he says, really, the best way to fight this is good nutrition. And, actually, 98% of deaths disappeared before the measles vaccine. So if you read the text of it, clearly HHS and the White House want to hedge their bets a little bit in case there is a big outbreak. But what's funny is, if I'm reading the tea leaves, if I'm looking to invest maybe in different big pharma companies, I think this health secretary still hates the vaccine.
If he hates the measles vaccines, he's a doofus. Because the measles vaccine cured the measles. It's like
But
whenever it appears, they're gone.
At the very least, he is the greatest Kennedy. I don't know. Well, jamming with faint praise.
That's a cruel thing to say.
I will say that the Make America Healthy Again movement, I think that it has some very good foundations, and then it also has a little bit of kooky silliness to it. I get the sense, though, that RFK Jr. is one of the most genuinely decent dudes in American politics.
Really?
I just think that I think he actually likes people.
Yeah.
I think he actually likes the country.
Yeah. I think he's intelligent.
I think he's intelligent.
Yeah. And I love that he drove a chainsawed off whalehead from Kennebunkport to my hometown.
Okay, that's the part I like.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff with the women. I'm not sure.
Well, you can't judge a Kennedy by that.
That's only 50% of the world. right?
If all of the women in his background are still alive and none of them are submerged,
We lost one of them, didn't we?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
We also now, I guess that's Usha Vance. I don't know who the two other women are.
What I want, you know how they always introduce people that they've helped? What I want is for Trump to say, heal, and for Walsh to stand up and go, I can walk again. and Shapiro can say, that was better than Jesus. I never liked that guy.
oh man, you can't say things like that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've got...
I'm just imagining what would be fun. Long speeches.
So everyone's still mingling. This is not kicking off for a little while now.
No. This is Mingle City.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, to think in recent memory, we've had a mixture of conservatives and liberals up there on the dais. We've had at least one woman, Nancy Pelosi, ripping up the speech. We've had Kamala Harris up there, being Kamala. And now, just a bunch of Republican dudes, just a bunch of normal-looking Republican white dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think we're back.
We're back.
Yeah.
We're so back.
The New York Times today ran an article, Trump has bullying masculinity. I thought, good.
Yeah.
A lot of people who need bullying in that town.
It'd be very interesting to see what the president chooses to cover in the speech. Obviously, Donald Trump has never given a short speech.
Well, except his inaugural speech.
That's true. It was pushed inside, yeah.
That's right. But then, in fairness, he immediately went downstairs
And gave the rest
and gave me the rest of the
absolutely
speech.
true. That's absolutely right.
And this one, truly, Trump said we get tired of winning. And I almost am tired of winning, and I mean it in a very literal way, and I do have 3 kids, 4 and under, and I've been traveling a lot. This news cycle is exhausting because Trump, whether you love him or hate him, you have to admit, he has notched so many victories in the first month in office.
Yeah, we're like 45 days or something into his
Less than that.
Less than that. Yeah.
And I personally have not stopped grinning. I have been giddy. And it's like, sometimes Trump annoys me, sometimes he doesn't, but I think he's doing great. I love what he's doing. It's funny, this needed to happen, and there's going to be some ancillary damage. I mean, I'm sorry for some of the people losing their jobs. Some of the people who lose their jobs are going to be good people.
Yeah.
But this cancer of these agencies has to be ripped out. It just has to.
And the president needs to be able to run the executive branch.
executive branch,
This is
right,
kind of
yeah.
basic stuff. So, the Democrats are whining. I was on a liberal news show recently. They said, isn't there a threat to the separation of powers? And I thought, no. There was a threat to the separation of powers.
right.
Trump is exerting, actually, his just authority.
I would like to hear a lawyer. I have not asked a real constitutional lawyer how the legislature can create an agency in the executive branch that the executive can't destroy. It seems to me, if it's in the executive branch, the executive can do anything he wants with it.
Well, the trick of it is, and this is kind of what Chevron was ultimately about, is that it actually is the legislature ceding its authority to regulate to executive agencies.
But then
that the executive doesn't have control over.
The executive doesn't have control over.
No, they created a branch of government.
They created a branch of government.
And all this stuff about Elon Musk wasn't elected, when they have all of these people weren't elected.
Yeah,
But the other
exactly.
crazy thing when they knock Elon and the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge has a 100-year plus precedent. This began really under Wilson of the Bureau of Efficiency that reformed the executive branch. After that, you had FDR, had the Brownlow Commission. That created the executive office of the president. After FDR, Truman had the Hoover Commission. Same thing, reorganized the executive. Reagan had the Grace Commission. My favorite example, though, is more recently, Al Gore as vice president.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
It was Al Gore in the 90s. I actually, oddly enough, was just sitting behind Al Gore on an airplane.
Wow, really?
Apparently, global warming doesn't pay anymore because he was sitting right in front of me commercial. But Al Gore in the 90s had the National Initiative for Reinventing Government.
Yeah.
And it fired 250,000 federal employees, and it consolidated 800 agencies. Elon hasn't come anywhere close to that.
I know. He was the most successful. The only problem with him is a lot of it was gutting the military because they thought the Cold War was over and they were going to get rid of all these soldiers we didn't need. It was actually a bad thing. But in terms of cutting government and cutting regulation, Gore was very successful.
Yeah.
They were, Clinton was a good president domestically. If you don't look at him overseas, he was actually not a bad president.
And if you don't look inside the office.
And you don't look inside his heart.
Never look
inside his black heart. Yeah.
It is fun to think back to the 90s. As you know, I always say that the 90s were the peak of American civilization.
The 90s are like the new 50s. That's the new era that you look back to sort of nostalgically.
But it's so much better than the 50s. In the 50s, we were in the middle of this Cold War, the nuclear arms race, the space race.
Everyone had PTSD from the war.
Right.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we didn't have a single problem. In the 90s, we could ascend Bill Clinton twice to be president of the United States.
It didn't matter.
And it didn't matter.
It was actually pretty good.
In the 1990s, we could make Smash Mouth, a best-selling rock and roll band, singing songs about having your finger and your thumb in the shape of an L on your forehead, because literally nothing was wrong.
No, somebody once told me about that.
Yeah.
That was the great Onion headline when 9/11 happened. It was Americans yearn to care about stupid crap again.
Right.
So that was the 90s, no question. I spent the 90s in England, so I missed the whole thing. It was great in England. I mean,
You missed the height of American power. You missed
but
the height of American
there
power.
is truth to that.
In the 1990s, Kurt Cobain killed himself to protest that nothing was wrong. There was literally nothing wrong.
Now, is this all right? Now we have, ladies and
Donald
gentlemen,
Trump.
the President of the United States.
I mean, what a triumphant moment for Donald Trump.
No kidding. Man.
This is like the greatest version of when Nigel Farage went to the European legislators. And he said, I came here a decade ago and I said we were leaving the EU and you all laughed at me. Who's laughing now? This is Donald Trump's who's laughing now moment.
And in living memory, nothing like this has ever happened.
No, I don't think it's. I can't think of anything. Maybe Napoleon escaping from
my son has a little placemat with all the presidents on the dining room table, and he loves Trump. He loves Johnson for some reason, but he loves Trump. Points to Trump at it. And there's
He
one.
loves impeached presidents.
Not that Johnson. Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
But there's one president with two pictures on there. And on the next edition of that placemat,
there'll be two.
there are going to be two. And, so Trump runs for president in 2016, and he says, I'm going to be great, I'm going to be the greatest president, so historic. And he has now made that happen.
Yep.
He is now one of the most significant figures in American history.
No, there's no question about that. Yeah. And it's still, it's up for grabs whether he's going to get away with doing what he has to do, which is killing the influence of the deep state.
Yeah.
But he did get kissed by Nancy Mace, which I think is... So that's my personal dream. I'm a simple man.
Win the presidency again. Smooch from Nancy Mace.
I keep thinking that the sergeant in arms is Senator Bob Menendez. And then I remember that Menendez is out.
He's not
going to the plane.
If he was, he's not anymore.
Yeah.
Is that Chip Roy?
I can't tell in the sea. Yeah.
I don't think anyone else has such a handsome goatee.
True. You
in the United States Congress.
Oh, that's the joke.
Rubio nearby. He's recovered from sinking into the couch during that Oval Office.
Yeah, old man, he looked like he was just leave steam behind him.
It was sort of like that meme of Homer Simpson backing into the bush.
He, by the way, is doing great.
He's doing a great job.
Doing a great job.
Kavanaugh.
All the justices, he's saying that.
Yeah. You're welcome, Brett. You're welcome, Amy. Who are you?
The president greeting the Joint Chiefs.
Now, I couldn't quite see which justices made it. I did not see Ketanji Jackson.
No.
I did not see Sotomayor or Kagan. Well, now, I might have just missed them. It's hard to see. The cameras are moving. Scalia famously would not go to the State of the Union. He went in the first few years, and then he said it was just a ridiculous political display, and the justices really had no role there.
The president about to take the podium and address the joint session of Congress. We'll cut to his remarks, and then we'll be back as soon as the speech is over to tell you what we think about it. We'll see you then.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States, members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. There's never been anything like it. The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes. We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country. And won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever. Likewise, small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber. Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record, to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it. In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many. And what makes it even more impressive is that, do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? How about it? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever. They heard my words and they chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month, and virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way. So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again. Every day, my administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid. I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction. To unshackle our economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated, just like I did in my very successful first term. And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we have ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good. And I have stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. And 2 days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America. I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And likewise, I renamed, for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again. Beautiful Alaska. We love Alaska. We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer. We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important. You should be hired based on merit. And the Supreme Court, in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have removed the poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding. And if you really want to see numbers, just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer. What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like it. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country. They're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job. A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%, slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now. And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be truly spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA. To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. We know what we're doing. We should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education, the most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And we've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taking back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, a federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them, and we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck. You're going to find it. But a lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid, and nobody does, and it really hurts Social Security and hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229, one person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country. But we're going to find out where that money's going, and it's not going to be pretty. By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families. And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it. With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, we will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. For nearly 100 years, the federal bureaucracy has grown until it has crushed our freedoms, ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you're rejected. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. And any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. And the next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there. They're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country. First term. We had a great first term. If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. China's average tariff on our products is twice what we charge them. And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens. This is happening by friend and foe. This system is not fair to the United States and never was, and so on April 2nd, I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to be accused of April Fool's Day. That's not, just one day cost us a lot of money. But we're going to do it in April. I'm a very superstitious person. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that, too. They don't even allow us in their market. We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer. Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of billions of dollars. We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the United States will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer. Thanks to our America First policies we're putting into place, we have had $1.7 trillion of new investment in America in just the past few weeks. The combination of the election and our economic policies that people of SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment, which they wouldn't have done if Kamala had won. Apple announced $500 billion investment. Tim Cook called me. He said, I cannot spend it fast enough. It's going to be much higher than that, I believe. They'll be building their plants here instead of in China. And just yesterday, Taiwan Semiconductor, the biggest in the world, most powerful in the world, has a tremendous amount, 97% of the market, announced a $165 billion investment to build the most powerful chips on earth right here in the USA. And we're not giving them any money. Your CHIPS Act is a horrible, horrible thing. We give hundreds of billions of dollars, and it doesn't mean a thing. They take our money and they don't spend it. All that meant to them, we're giving them no money. All that was important to them was they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so they came and they're building, and many other companies are coming. We don't have to give them money. We just want to protect our businesses and our people. And they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So it's very amazing. You should get rid of the CHIP Act, and whatever's left over, Mr. Speaker, you should use it to reduce debt or any other reason you want to. Our new trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. Who will now be selling into our home market, the USA, because nobody is going to be able to compete with you. Because those goods that come in from other countries and companies, they're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in, and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers, starting on April 2nd, it may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and I said, just bear with me, and they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, and we were doing great, but Biden did not enforce it, and it hurt our farmers. But our farmers are going to have a field day right now. So to our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. It's all going to happen. And I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel, because if we don't have, as an example, steel and lots of other things, we don't have a military, and frankly, we just won't have a country very long. Here today is a proud American steelworker, fantastic person from Decatur, Alabama, Jeff Denard. Has been working at the same steel plant for 27 years in a job that has allowed him to serve as the captain of his local volunteer fire department, raised 7 children with his beautiful wife, Nicole, and over the years provide a loving home for more than 40 foster children. So great, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Stories like Jeff's remind us that tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. And look where Biden took us, very low, the lowest we've ever been. Jeff, I want to thank you very much. And I also want to recognize another person who has devoted herself to foster care community. She works so hard on it. A very loving person, our magnificent First Lady of the United States. Melania's work has yielded incredible results, helping prepare our nation's future leaders as they enter the workforce. Our First Lady is joined by two impressive young women, very impressive. Haley Ferguson, who benefited from the First Lady's Fostering the Future initiative and is poised to complete her education and become a teacher. And Elliston Berry, who became a victim of an illicit deepfake image produced by a peer. With Elliston's help, the Senate just passed the Take It Down Act, and this is so important. Thank you very much, John. John Thune, thank you. Stand up, John. Thank you, John. Thank you all very much. Thank you. And thank you to John Thune and the Senate. Great job. To criminalize the publication of such images online is terrible, terrible thing. And once it passes the House, I look forward to signing that bill into law. Thank you. And I'm going to use that bill for myself, too, if you don't mind. Because nobody gets treated worse than I do online. Nobody. That's great. Thank you very much to the Senate. Thank you. But if we truly care about protecting Americans' children, no step is more crucial than securing America's borders. Over the past 4 years, 21 million people poured into the United States. Many of them were murderers, human traffickers, gang members, and other criminals from the streets of dangerous cities all throughout the world. Because of Joe Biden's insane and very dangerous open border policies, they are now strongly embedded in our country, but we are getting them out and getting them out fast. And I want to thank Tom Homan and Christy. I want to thank you and Paul of Border Patrol. I want to thank you. What a job they've all done. Everybody, Border Patrol, ICE, law enforcement in general is incredible. We have to take care of our law enforcement. Have to. Last year, a brilliant 22-year-old nursing student named Laken Riley, the best in her class, admired by everybody, went out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. That morning, Laken was viciously attacked, assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and horrifically murdered. Laken was stolen from us by a savage illegal alien gang member who was arrested while trespassing across Biden's open southern border and then set loose into the United States under the heartless policies of that failed administration. It was indeed a failed administration. He had then been arrested and released in a Democrat-run sanctuary city, a disaster, before ending the life of this beautiful young angel. With us this evening are Laken's beloved mother, Allison, and her sister, Lauren. Last year, I told Laken's grieving parents that we would ensure their daughter would not have died in vain. That's why the very first bill I signed into law as your 47th president mandates the detention of all dangerous criminal aliens who threaten public safety. It's a very strong, powerful act. It's called the Laken-Riley Act. So Allison and Lauren, America will never, ever forget our beautiful Laken Hope Riley. Thank you very much. Since taking office, my administration has launched the most sweeping border and immigration crackdown in American history, and we quickly achieved the lowest numbers of illegal border crossers ever recorded. Thank you. The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president. Thank you. Joe Biden didn't just open our borders, he flew illegal aliens over them to overwhelm our schools, hospitals, and communities throughout the country. Entire towns like Aurora, Colorado, and Springfield, Ohio, buckled under the weight of the migrant occupation and corruption like nobody's ever seen before. Beautiful towns destroyed. Now, just as I promised in my inaugural address, we are achieving the great liberation of America. But there still is much work to be done. Here tonight is a woman I have gotten to know, Alexis Nungari from Houston. Wonderful woman. Last June, Alexis's 12-year-old daughter, her precious Jocelyn, walked to a nearby convenience store. She was kidnapped, tied up, assaulted for 2 hours under a bridge, and horrifically murdered. Arrested and charged with this heinous crime are 2 illegal alien monsters from Venezuela, released into America by the last administration through their ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation greatly. Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter, and earlier tonight I signed an order keeping my word to you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that she loved animals so much. She loved nature. Across Galveston Bay, from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you will find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's creatures on the edge of the Gulf of America. Alexis, moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge in loving memory of your beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would, may I have the order? Thank you very much. All three savages charged with Jocelyn and Lakin's murders were members of the Venezuelan prison gang, the toughest gang, they say, in the world, known as Tren de Aragua. 2 weeks ago, I officially designated this gang, along with MS-13 and the bloodthirsty Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for them. Countless thousands of these terrorists were welcomed into the U.S. by the Biden administration. But now every last one will be rounded up and forcibly removed from our country, or, if they're too dangerous, put in jails, standing trial in this country, because we don't want them to come back ever. With us this evening is a warrior on the front lines of that battle, Border Patrol Agent Roberto Ortiz. Great guy. In January, Roberto and another agent were patrolling by the Rio Grande near an area known as Cartel Island. Doesn't sound too nice to me. When heavily armed gunmen started shooting at them, Roberto saw that his partner was totally exposed, at great danger, and he leapt into action, returning fire and providing crucial seconds for his fellow agent to seek safety, just barely. I have some of the prints of that event, and it was not good. Agent Ortiz, we salute you for your great courage and for your line of fire that you took, and for the bravery that you showed. We honor you, and we will always honor you. Thank you, Roberto, very much. Thank you, Roberto. And I actually got to know him on my many calls to the border. He's a great gentleman. The territory to the immediate south of our border is now dominated entirely by criminal cartels that murder, rape, torture, and exercise total control. They have total control over a whole nation, posing a grave threat to our national security. The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing. Five nights ago, Mexican authorities, because of our tariff policies being imposed on them, think of this, handed over to us 29 of the biggest cartel leaders in their country. That has never happened before. They want to make us happy. First time ever. But we need Mexico and Canada to do much more than they've done, and they have to stop the fentanyl and drugs pouring into the USA. They're going to stop it. I have sent Congress a detailed funding request laying out exactly how we will eliminate these threats to protect our homeland and complete the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than current record holder President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a moderate man, but someone who believed very strongly in borders. Americans expect Congress to send me this funding without delay so I can sign it into law. So, Mr. Speaker, John Thune, both of you, I hope you're going to be able to do that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Leader, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's get it to me. I'll sign it so fast, you won't even believe it. And as we reclaim our sovereignty, we must also bring back law and order to our cities and towns. In recent years, our justice system has been turned upside down by radical left lunatics. Many jurisdictions virtually ceased enforcing the law against dangerous repeat offenders while weaponizing law enforcement against political opponents like me. My administration has acted swiftly and decisively to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law, starting at the FBI and the DOJ. Pam, good luck. Cash, wherever you may be, good luck. Good luck. Pam Bond. Good luck. So important. Going to do a great job. Cash, thank you. Thank you, Cash. They've already started very strong. They're going to do a fantastic job. You're going to be very proud of them. We're also once again giving our police officers the support, protection, and respect they so dearly deserve. They have to get it. They have such a hard, dangerous job, but we're going to make it less dangerous. The problem is the bad guys don't respect the law, but they're starting to respect it, and they soon will respect it. This also includes our great fire departments throughout the country. Our firemen and women are unbelievable people, and we'll never forget them. And besides that, they voted for me in record numbers, so I have no choice. 1 year ago this month, 31-year-old New York police officer Jonathan Diller, unbelievably wonderful person and a great officer, was gunned down at a traffic stop on Long Island. I went to his funeral. The vicious criminal charged with his murder had 21 prior arrests, and they were rough arrests, too. He was a real bad one. The thug in the seat next to him had 14 prior arrests and went by the name of Killer. He was Killer. He killed other people, they say, a lot of them. I attended Officer Diller's service, and when I met his wife and one-year-old son, Ryan, it was very inspirational, actually. His widow's name is Stephanie, and she is here tonight. Stephanie, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you very much. Stephanie, we're going to make sure that Ryan knows his dad was a true hero, New York's finest, and we're going to get these cold-blooded killers and repeat offenders off our streets, and we're going to do it fast. Got to stop it. They get out with 28 arrests. They push people into subway trains. They hit people over the head, back of the head with baseball bats. We got to get them out of here. I've already signed an executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer, and tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law. I'm also asking for a new crime bill getting tough on repeat offenders while enhancing protections for America's police officers so they can do their jobs without fear of their lives being totally destroyed. They don't want to be killed. We're not going to let them be killed. Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago. Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer, actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Thank you, DJ. DJ's doctors believe his cancer likely came from a chemical he was exposed to when he was younger. Since 1975, rates of child cancer have increased by more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top priorities for our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. With the name Kennedy, you would have thought everybody over here would have been cheering. How quickly they forget. Our goal is to get toxins out of our environment, poisons out of our food supply, and keep our children healthy and strong. As an example, not long ago, and you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, 1 in 10,000. And now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong. 1 in 36. Think of that. So we're going to find out what it is, and there's nobody better than Bobby and all of the people that are working with you. You have the best to figure out what is going on. Okay, Bobby? Good luck. It's a very important job. Thank you. Thank you. My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Littlejohn and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stories like this are why, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology. I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Because we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better? Our service members won't be activists and ideologues. They will be fighters and warriors. They will fight for our country. And Pete, congratulations. Secretary of Defense, congratulations. And he's not big into the woke movement, I can tell you. I know him well. I am pleased to report that in January, the U.S. Army had its single best recruiting month in 15 years, and that all armed services are having among the best recruiting results ever in the history of our services. What a difference. And you know, it was just a few months ago where the results were exactly the opposite. We couldn't recruit anywhere. We couldn't recruit. Now we're having the best results just about that we've ever had. What a tremendous turnaround. It's really a beautiful thing to see. People love our country again. It's very simple. They love our country, and they love being in our military again. So it's a great thing, and thank you very much. Great job. Thank you. We're joined tonight by a young man, Jason Hartley, who knows the weight of that call of duty. Jason's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all wore the uniform. Jason tragically lost his dad, who was also a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy when he was just a boy, and now he wants to carry on the family legacy of service. Jason is a senior in high school, a 6-letter varsity athlete, a really good athlete, they say, a brilliant student with a 4.46, that's good, GPA. And his greatest dream is to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And Jason, that's a very big deal getting in. That's a hard one to get into. But I'm pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. You will soon be joining the Corps of Cadets. Thank you. Jason, you're going to be on the long gray line, Jason. As Commander-in-Chief, my focus is on building the most powerful military of the future. As a first step, I'm asking Congress to fund a state-of-the-art Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland, all made in the USA. And Ronald Reagan wanted to do it long ago, but the technology just wasn't there, not even close. But now we have the technology. It's incredible, actually. And other places, they have it. Israel has it. Other places have it. And the United States should have it too, right, Tim, right? They should have it too. So I want to thank you. But it's a very, very important. This is a very dangerous world. We should have it. We want to be protected, and we're going to protect our citizens like never before. To boost our defense industrial base, we are also going to resurrect the American shipbuilding industry, including commercial shipbuilding and military shipbuilding. And for that purpose, I am announcing tonight that we will create a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House and offer special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon. It will have a huge impact. To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. Just today, a large American company announced they are buying both ports around the Panama Canal and lots of other things having to do with the Panama Canal and a couple of other canals. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans, not for others, but others could use it. But it was built at tremendous cost of American blood and treasure. 38,000 workers died building the Panama Canal. They died of malaria. They died of snake bites and mosquitoes. Not a nice place to work. They paid them very highly to go there, knowing there was a 25% chance that they would die. The most expensive project also that was ever built in our country's history, if you bring it up to modern day costs. It was given away by the Carter administration for $1. But that agreement has been violated very severely. We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. And we have Marco Rubio in charge. Good luck, Marco. Now, we know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Marco's been amazing, and he's going to do a great job. Think of it. He got 100 votes. You know, he was approved with actually 99, but the 100th was this gentleman, and I feel very certain. So let's assume he got 100 votes. And I'm either very, very happy about that or I'm very concerned about it. But he's already proven. I mean, he's a great gentleman. He's respected by everybody, and we appreciate you voting for Marco. He's going to do a fantastic job. Thank you. Thank you. He's doing a great job. Great job. And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never thought possible before. It's a very small population, but very, very large piece of land and very, very important for military security. America is once again standing strong against the forces of radical Islamic terrorism. 3.5 years ago, ISIS terrorists killed 13 American service members and countless others in the Abbey Gate bombing during the disastrous and incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan. Not that they were withdrawing, it was the way they withdrew. Perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that we have just apprehended the top terrorist responsible for that atrocity, and he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice. And I want to thank especially the government of Pakistan for helping arrest this monster. This was a very momentous day for those 13 families who I actually got to know very well, most of them, whose children were murdered, and the many people that were so badly, over 42 people, so badly injured on that fateful day in Afghanistan. What a horrible day. Such incompetence was shown that when Putin saw what happened, I guess he said, wow, maybe this is my chance. That's how bad it was. Should have never happened. Grossly incompetent people. I spoke to many of the parents and loved ones, and they're all in our hearts tonight. Just spoke to them on the phone. We had a big call. Every one of them called, and everybody was on the line, and they did nothing but cry with happiness. They were very happy, as happy as you can be under those circumstances. Their child, brother, sister, son, daughter was killed for no reason whatsoever. In the Middle East, we're bringing back our hostages from Gaza. In my first term, we achieved one of the most groundbreaking peace agreements in generations, the Abraham Accords. And now we're going to build on that foundation to create a more peaceful and prosperous future for the entire region. A lot of things are happening in the Middle East. People haven't been talking about that so much lately with everything going on with Ukraine and Russia. But a lot of things are happening in the Middle East. It's a rough neighborhood, actually. I'm also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people are being killed every single week. More than that. They're Russian young people. They're Ukrainian young people. They're not Americans. But I want it to stop. Meanwhile, Europe has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine, by far. Think of that. They've spent more buying Russian oil and gas than they have defending. And we've spent perhaps $350 billion, like taking candy from a baby. That's what happened. And they've spent $100 billion. What a difference that is. And we have an ocean separating us, and they don't. But we're getting along very well with them, and lots of good things are happening. Biden has authorized more money in this fight than Europe has spent by billions and billions of dollars. It's hard to believe that they wouldn't have stopped it and said at some point, come on, let's equalize. You got to be equal to us. But that didn't happen. Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? It's time to stop this madness. It's time to halt the killing. It's time to end this senseless war. If you want to end wars, you have to talk to both sides. Nearly 4 years ago, amid rising tensions, a history teacher named Mark Fogel was detained in Russia and sentenced to 14 years in a penal colony. Rough stuff. The previous administration barely lifted a finger to help him. They knew he was innocent, but they had no idea where to begin. But last summer, I promised his 95-year-old mother, Malphine, that we would bring her boy safely back home. After 22 days in office, I did just that, and they are here tonight. To Mark and his great mom, we are delighted to have you safe and sound and with us. As fate would have it, Mark Fogel was born in a small rural town in Butler, Pennsylvania. Have you heard of it? Where his mother has lived for the past 78 years. I just happened to go there last July 13th for a rally. That was not pleasant. And that is where I met his beautiful mom right before I walked onto that stage. And I told her I would not forget what she said about her son. And I never did I? Never forgot. Less than 10 minutes later, at that same rally, gunfire rang out, and a sick and deranged assassin unloaded 8 bullets from his sniper's perch into a crowd of many thousands of people. My life was saved by a fraction of an inch, but some were not so lucky. Corey Comparator was a firefighter, a veteran, a Christian, a husband, a devoted father, and above all, a protector. When the sound of gunshots pierced the air, it was a horrible sound. Corey knew instantly what it was and what to do. He threw himself on top of his wife and daughters and shielded them from the bullets with his own body. Corey was hit really hard. You know the story from there. He sacrificed his life to save theirs. 2 others, very fine people, were also seriously hit. But thankfully, with the help of 2 great country doctors, we thought they were gone and they were saved. So those doctors had great talent. We're joined by Corey's wife, Helen, who was his high school sweetheart, and their two beloved daughters, Allison and Kaylee. Thank you. To Helen, Allison, and Kaylee, Corey is looking down on his three beautiful ladies right now, and he is cheering you on. He loves you. He is cheering you on. Corey was taken from us much too soon, but his destiny was to leave us all with a shining example of the selfless devotion of a true American patriot. It was love like Corey's that built our country, and it's love like Corey's that is going to make our country more majestic than ever before. I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that. Thank you. Thank you very much. From the patriots of Lexington and Concord to the heroes of Gettysburg and Normandy, from the warriors who crossed the Delaware to the trailblazers who climbed the Rockies, and from the legends who soared at Kitty Hawk to the astronauts who touched the moon, Americans have always been the people who defied all odds, transcended all dangers, made the most extraordinary sacrifices, and did whatever it took to defend our children, our country, and our freedom. And as we have seen in this chamber tonight, that same strength, faith, love, and spirit is still alive and thriving in the hearts of the American people. Despite the best efforts of those who would try to censor us, silence us, break us, destroy us, Americans are today a proud, free, sovereign, and independent nation that will always be free, and we will fight for it till death. We will never let anything happen to our beloved country, because we are a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. Our ancestors crossed a vast ocean, strode into the unknown wilderness, and carved their fortunes from the rock and soil of a perilous and very dangerous frontier. They chased our destiny across a boundless continent. They built the railroads, laid the highways, and graced the world with American marvels like the Empire State Building, the mighty Hoover Dam, and the towering Golden Gate Bridge. They lit the world with electricity, broke free of the force of gravity, fired up the engines of American industry, vanquished the communists, fascists, and Marxists all over the world, and gave us countless modern wonders sculptured out of iron, glass, and steel. We stand on the shoulders of these pioneers who won and built the modern age, these workers who poured their sweat into the skylines of our cities, these warriors who shed their blood on fields of battle and gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. Now it is our time to take up the righteous cause of American liberty. And it is our turn to take America's destiny into our own hands and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher. And we are going to forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth. We are going to create the highest quality of life, build the safest and wealthiest and healthiest and most vital communities anywhere in the world. We are going to conquer the vast frontiers of science, and we are going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on the planet Mars and even far beyond. And through it all, we are going to rediscover the unstoppable power of the American spirit. And we are going to renew unlimited promise of the American dream. Every single day, we will stand up and we will fight, fight, fight for the country our citizens believe in and for the country our people deserve. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
An amazing speech by Donald Trump to the joint session of Congress, maybe the longest joint session ever by a president of the United States. I mean, if we think of it as a State of the Union address, even though technically it isn't one, was this an hour 40, an hour?
Something like an hour 40. Minutes. Bill Clinton had some doozies in there, so I don't know if it was the longest ever. But, I was there at Biden's last year, and it felt long.
At 40 minutes or something.
It was, I mean, he might have pushed it closer to an hour, but it felt like 2 days. And this one, I'm not saying there weren't moments that lulled compared to others, but I was engaged for about 92% of this. I mean, this was an amazingly well-written and delivered speech. Also, Trump set this trap for Democrats. Really, the Democrats set the trap for themselves, and he just called their attention to it. When he said, I could get up here, I could cure the worst diseases, I could do the greatest feats, and they would not stand up and applaud. And at that point, they said, well, now we're really not going to stand up and applaud. So, just to use the most stirring example, in a night of amazing moments, the one that stole the show was that 13-year-old boy who's been fighting brain cancer, DJ, special agent, Secret Service agent.
Yeah, exactly.
He always wanted to be a cop, and he's now made a member of the U.S. Secret Service. And you just think, man, if you can't agree in this country that is a good thing, we have nothing in common. We have nothing that we can agree on. And the Democrats would not stand up. Many of them would not even applaud a little kid fighting cancer.
It's amazing.
These are sick people.
It was an extraordinary speech, and you can say it was too long. Trump tends to do that.
Guys, according to AI, which knows everything, the record belongs to Bill Clinton.
Yep, I knew it.
1 hour, 28 minutes, 49 seconds.
Oh, wait.
I think there may be a new record. We might have a new record.
Wow, okay, all right.
There may be a new record.
Wow.
But I've never, I don't think anyone has ever seen a president go in there as pugilistically as he did and really take the Republicans, the Democrats head on like that. And the Democrats who came to start trouble were bullied into silence, beaten into silence by this one man who has just taken everything from them. False accusations, impeachments, an assassination attempt, convictions for felonies that don't even exist, that no one can name. And he has beaten them every time, and he did it again. And I just can't help thinking that, look, in the end, the proof is in the pudding. He's going to have to pull it off. He's going to have to improve the economy. He's going to have to bring down prices. He's going to have to resolve the debt and all those things and build our military back, because we're in big trouble with our military as China's military soars. But in terms of a promise, in terms of looking at a president and thinking, yeah, that guy could do that, that we now have a leader, he's an extraordinary person and an extraordinary moment. And you know, he has this way of blowing away all the kind of picayune criticisms that you can throw at him, because it's been so long since anybody stood up and said, this is a great country and I will bring it to another level of greatness. Who has said that besides Reagan? Since Reagan.
Right.
Who has said, this is a wonderful, wonderful country, which it is, and I will make it in, and I will stand up into that tradition and move it to the next step. It was an amazing thing. And I don't know, I can't help thinking, I could be wrong, you never know about this stuff, but I can't help thinking that after the press fumes and screams and roars and shakes their fists, the American people are just going to, you know, pushes his popularity up to the next level.
You know what they won't be able to say? They always say after Trump's speeches, it was dark and
yeah.
divisive.
Yeah.
And the reality is, there was nothing dark about this speech. Trump was having a great time.
Yeah, he looked like he was having fun.
And this, I think, really off-footed the Democrats. Trump was having so much fun, and it was infectious, and the audience was having fun, and they did not know how to react to that.
Yeah.
So I can't name even a tenth of the examples, but when Trump goes out there, he says, we killed the top terrorist in Afghanistan. The Democrats, not only do they not stand, they don't applaud. So the Democrats formally come out in favor of the top terrorist in Afghanistan. When Trump says we're taking down the cartels, the Democrats don't applaud. Democrats formally come out as pro-cartel. That's a curious political choice.
Right.
When Trump announces that he brought an American citizen home from a Russian prison, they can't even applaud that.
They booed the police.
They booed the police. That's no surprise.
We got to support the police, and they booed. Yeah, but that moment is past.
Yeah,
that
that's
moment when you could say one of the stupidest things any political party has ever supported, defunding the police. that moment of hysteria and dizziness and vertigo has gone.
Yeah.
And now we remember the obvious thing. We need police because they're bad guys, and we need good guys to stop the bad guys. And he supports them. They're booing. They're literally booing it. They're not just not standing up. They're literally booing him.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And you know, the Democrats, they do not know. I said this to Megyn Kelly the other day. They simply do not know what has happened. And what has happened is that force field of protection that was given to them by our rotten, corrupt, left-wing establishment press has been destroyed by people like us, you know, and by Megyn and by Joe Rogan and by all those people. This new media has wiped it away. And you know, they're still there. They still have a lot of reporting power, but they do not have the power to lie without being exposed in real time.
Yeah.
Thanks to Elon Musk to some degree on X, you know, that they can be exposed and people see through them. They don't get it. They don't get that their force field is gone.
Should we talk about Al Green getting thrown out? Not the good singer.
Yeah,
I
was going to say, I always liked Al Green.
Yeah. You know, when he stood up there right at the beginning, I just thought, wow, this is, he's a ridiculous person.
Yes.
But really, he was just, by degree, a little bit more extreme than the Democrats. Many of them were heckling him tonight.
Yes.
And I thought from the moment they started doing that, I said, this is it's inappropriate, it's disreputable, but it's just a bad political choice.
I agree.
I also think it was a bad choice of the people who were producing the actual video broadcast of the speech, not to let us hear what he was saying.
Yeah.
Because he went to all that trouble. It was so disruptive. It's shut down the speech. All these things happen, and none of us know what on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a cane. I think you made the point that it was like from the 1800s.
The caning of Sumner or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know what the guy was on about. But you could tell, obviously, that Speaker Johnson was already prepared for this.
Yes.
He had all of the procedural order in front of him so that he would be able to react, because the Democrats were forecasting that they were going to cause this kind of trouble for the entire day leading into this.
And Al Green, I think, has already introduced articles of impeachment against Trump, and he's tried to impeach him like 150 times already.
Yeah.
So he's a slightly more extreme version of the Democrats. But all the heckling tonight, I just thought, it was going to be a bad night for the Democrats because they lost the Electoral College by a lot. They lost the popular vote significantly, and for the first time in 20 years. So it was just going to be a bad night. And if they just sort of were even slightly normal, They might have gotten through it and lived to fight another day. But I don't think the median American or even the center-left American watching that display tonight is taking the side.
It's a terrible night for the Democrats. Yeah. And truly, if they had just treated it like any 1990s State of the Union address,
yes,
they would have come out far ahead of what
they could have walked out and just said, what a divisive speech.
That's
and,
right,
you know, he could have brought the country together and he didn't. It would have been ineffective, but it would have been a lot more effective than this. And because he knew it was coming, he brought that force of personality. I've never seen it. You know, he's like those old sheriffs in the movies who go out and stand up against a lynch mob, and just the force of their personality makes everybody kind of ashamed and go home. By the end of it, they weren't saying anything. They were just sitting there. They put down their stupid signs and all this. What do they support? You know, what do they support? They're stuck. They're stuck with this transgender garbage. They're stuck with this racial garbage. The people, you know, I think people on both sides of the racial divide, if it still is a divide, I think they're sick of it. You know, they know it doesn't work. The DEI thing is disgraceful. It is racism embedded in government like it hasn't been since the end of the Jim Crow laws. It's all of it is so disgusting. And I think that fog that people were in. I mean, this is the thing that bothered me most about the Biden administration is I would talk to normal, everyday people who were not particularly political, and you would say, you know, sexually mutilating a child is a Nazi-like atrocity. It's not like saying, Donald Trump is Hitler. It's actually like what Nazis did. And they would kind of just gloss, you know, kind of go into this fugue state because we were all in this bad dream that this was the way it was going to be, that this was normal, that there was something right about this or defensible about it. And I think people have woken up from that, and he just took advantage of that and slammed them. And one last thing, he's right about Joe Biden. Joe Biden was the worst president ever. And the fact that he was protected by the press, and Jake Zapper is writing a book, If I Did It, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The autobiography.
It's like, I mean, they think we're going to forget, but we don't have to forget anymore because this new media is here to remind us and to show us and bring the receipts.
I think there was that look on some of the Democrat members' faces tonight, which was, and not all of them, but some of them, where they thought, you know, yikes, maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't have raided this guy's house. Like, you know, because Donald Trump woke up today and he chose violence. He knew, he came to this thing, he said, you know, I've paid a lot and I nearly lost my life, very nearly on one occasion and almost on another occasion, to be here. I've given up a lot for this job, and you people, you tried to throw me in prison 4 times, you tried to kick me off the ballot, you tried to murder me, you raided my home, and guess what? Guess who's laughing now? Guess, how did that, he even asked the question of the members.
How did that work out?
How did that work out for you? You know, I mean, just a political vindication, the likes of which we have never seen in this country before.
And you're right, that line where he said, you know, I could do anything and you wouldn't stand up, it actually kind of cut their legs off.
Yes.
Because he started by saying, look, you know, what would you applaud for? What would you? And they proved that he was right. And so it just kind of took the legitimacy away from them. It's kind of amazing. And I did enjoy seeing Walsh and Shapiro in the gallery.
Yeah,
and
do we have any video of Ben and Matt at the event? Quite an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe we may have the Democrat response. Let's hear what they're saying.
I also signed an executive order
That
to
doesn't
ban
sound like a Democrat.
men from playing in women's sports.
There they are.
With our friend Riley Gaines.
There's Riley Gaines.
Hey guys,
Can we get
I
the
believe we
Democrat-
have the Democrat response. Can we hear it?
America is
Guess not.
exceptional. You can find that same
don't even know
sense
who
of
that Democrat is.
patriotism
No.
here in Wyandotte, Michigan, where I'm speaking from tonight.
Is there a way we
It's
can
a
hear this
working
guy?
class town just south of Detroit. President Trump and
Well, the
I
Democrats
both
don't
won
have
here in
anything
November.
to say. So maybe
It might not seem like
maybe it's not an
but
maybe it's
plenty
not,
of
maybe
places
it's
like
Jackson
this
just
still
moved
exist
in their
across
mouth.
the
Yeah.
United States.
We actually
There
cannot
we
hear
are.
it.
Places where people believe that if you work hard and play by the rules,
There we go.
you should do well and your kids should do better.
We don't believe that.
It reminds me of how I grew up. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat.
What is
but
your
it was
name?
never a big deal because we had shared values that were bigger than any one party. We just went through another fraught election season. Americans made it clear that prices are too high and that the government needs to be more responsive to their needs. America wants change.
And
But
we
there's
don't
a
want
responsible way to
gangsters,
make
and we don't
change
want you
in a
castrating
reckless
little
way.
kids.
And we can
Wasn't
make
just
that
the
change
prices.
without forgetting who we are as a country and as a democracy. So that's what I'm going to lay out tonight. Because whether you're from Wyandotte or Wichita, most Americans share three core beliefs: that the middle class is the engine of our country, that strong national security protects us from harm, and that our democracy, no matter how messy, is unparalleled and worth fighting for. Let's start with the economy. Michigan literally invented the middle class. The revolutionary idea that you can work at an auto plant and afford
There's a
the
lab,
car
I
you were
think, in
building.
Minneapolis.
That's the American dream.
Oh, that's not even
And
Michigan.
in
Sorry,
order to
Detroit.
expand and protect
Because
the
I'm
middle
pretty
class,
sure it
we
was
have to
like
do
Italy in the
three
High Middle
basic
Ages that invented the middle.
things.
I don't
The
know.
price of things we spend the most money on: groceries, housing, healthcare. We need to make more things in America with good-paying union jobs and bring our supply chains back home
She's
from
right.
places
I'm voting
like
for
China.
Trump.
We need to give American businesses
I just
the
have to say she's
certainty
doing a
they
very
need
good
to
job,
invest
but I
and
don't.
create the
I
jobs
actually
of the
don't
future.
understand how she is
And we need a
juxtaposing
tax system
the
that's fair
Democrat
for
platform
people who
from
don't have
Trump's
to make
administration.
billion
Right now.
dollars.
Yeah.
Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So, do his plans actually help Americans get ahead? Not even close. President Trump is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life. Grocery and home prices are going up, not down, and he hasn't laid out a credible plan to deal with either of those. His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers. Your premiums and prescriptions will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care. Meanwhile, for those keeping score, the national debt is going up, not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. And one more thing. In order to pay for his plan, he could very well come after your retirement. The Social Security, Medicare,
Come on,
and
that's
VA
they were
benefits
talking
you
about
whole
taking
lifetime.
your savings.
The
These
president
guys.
claims he won't, but Elon Musk just called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
I mean, in fairness, it is the biggest
that is-
Ponzi
all
scheme
around
of
the
all
subject
time.
of Elon Musk.
But Trump
Is there anyone in
won't touch
America
it.
who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts? No oversight, no
They're actually using the
protections
U.S.
against
Digital
cyber
Service,
attacks.
which
Yeah, I
is a
know.
branch of
No
the federal government.
guardrails on what they do with your private data.
And
We
20-year-olds
need
are
a
the
more
only
If it's
people
my
who know how to do
private,
this.
if it's
Wanna
my
cut
private
waste?
data,
I'll
why
help
does the
you do
government
it.
have it?
And all those people, what are there, like 100,000 people in the Treasury Department
mindless
looking at
firing
you?
of people who work to protect our nuclear weapons, keep our planes from crashing, and conduct the research that finds
This is, by the way, what I
cure for
mean by the
cancer,
press, right?
only to
In the old
rehire them
days,
2 days
the
later.
press would have said
No
all this was
CEO
true.
in America could do
People
that
would have
without being
actually,
summarily
thought
fired.
that maybe it was true. But now,
So
like,
we've talked about economic security. How about
She is
national
quite. She is quite good. Whoever she is.
Let's start
I
with
actually
the
think
border.
she's quite a good presenter.
They
As
made a
someone who spent my
choice to
whole
seem
career
normal.
protecting our homeland,
They picked someone we'd never heard of.
yes, that's true. That's
what is
right.
coming
That's right.
across its
This is
border.
a blue dog, maybe.
Period. Democrats and Republicans should all be for that. But securing the border without actually fixing our broken immigration system is dealing with the symptom and not the disease.
Oh, my Lord.
America is a nation
No.
of
But-
immigrants.
but yeah,
we
but also
need
got
a
rid of the
functional
symptom.
system keyed to the needs of our economy.
But that's dealing with the
that
diseases.
allows
Yeah, there's
The
them
actually-
symptom is
to
all the
come and
illegals
work
that are here.
illegally.
Right.
So I look forward to the president's plan on that. Because here's the thing. Today's world is deeply interconnected. Migration, cyber threats, AI, environmental destruction, terrorism.
Until we can solve it
One
all, we
nation
can't solve
cannot
any of
face
it.
these issues
Yeah.
alone. We need friends in all corners, and our safety depends on it. President Trump loves to say peace through strength. That's actually a line he stole from Ronald Reagan. But let me tell you, after the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Office last week, Reagan must be rolling in his grave.
Well, here's
We
the thing.
all want an end to the war in
This
Ukraine.
they should have edited
But
this
Reagan
part of the speech.
understood that true strength
The
requires
events in the Oval
Americans to
Office with
combine our military
Zelensky
and
were
economic might
very
with
difficult to
moral
watch.
clarity.
But in order to have a
And that scene
judgment
in the
about
Oval
them,
Office wasn't just a bad
now
episode of reality.
you have
got
to
the deal.
you have to ignore the fact that he got the deal.
Yeah.
That Zelensky literally today
He believes
sent him a letter and said,
closing
"Yeah,
out
all
a
right."
dictator
Yeah.
like Vladimir Putin,
As we knew he would when you were
friends,
watching, because he had no choice.
Canadians,
I swear, the Democrats told
sees
him he could go in
American
there,
leadership as
and the
merely a
the
series
American
of
people.
wasteful
What was it? They'll greet him as a conqueror.
Yeah, greet him as a liberator.
A liberator, yeah.
It was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War.
Well,
Donald
that
Trump's
is
actions
bad.
suggest
I'm
that
sorry
in
we elected him
his
because he would have
heart,
lost us
he
the Cold
doesn't
War.
believe we're an exceptional nation.
He would have lost
clearly
World War
doesn't
II.
He would have
think
lost the
we should be
Spanish-American War. He
America
would
is
have.
not perfect, but I stand with the majority of Americans.
I stand with
who
the Rough
believe we are
Riders.
still exceptional, unparalleled. And I would rather have American leadership over Chinese or Russian leadership any day of the week.
Oh, wow. Me too.
Because for generations, America
Damn it.
has offered something better. Our security and our prosperity, yes, but our democracy, our very system of government, has been the aspiration of the world.
We tried to
And right
destroy
now, it's at risk. It's at risk when the president decides you can pick and choose what rules you want to follow, when he ignores court orders and the Constitution itself, or when elected leaders stand by and just let it happen. But it's also at risk when the president pits Americans against each other, when he demonizes those who are different and tells certain people they shouldn't be included.
Are you doubling down on trans?
Because
Tell me you are.
America is not just a patch of land between two oceans. We are more than that. Generations have fought and died to secure the fundamental rights that define us. Those rights and the fight for them make
This
us
woman
who
has
we
secured her
are.
career if there's an
We're a
opening of a
nation
view.
of
I think.
strivers, risk takers, innovators, and we are never
I don't know.
satisfied.
She's too good for the View.
Is America's
Yeah,
I'm
no,
actually,
that's-
I'm actually somewhat impressed with her.
No,
I've lived and worked in many countries. I've seen democracies flicker out. I've seen what life is like when a government is rigged. You can't open a business without paying off a corrupt official. You can't criticize the guys in charge without getting a knock at the door in the middle of the night.
That's what I'm announcing tonight.
So as
I'm becoming a
much as we
Republican.
need to be responsive
The
to
kind
our
of countries
lives
that have
today,
ballot drop
don't
boxes
forget
just all over,
one
unsupervised.
You never
know.
Widespread mail-in ballots, contrary to the state
You don't even
constitution.
need your
How do we actually
identification
do
to vote. Yeah.
I know a lot of you have been asking that question. First, don't tune out. It's easy to be exhausted, but America
All right, I'm officially
needs you
saying let's
now
tune
more
out.
than
I know,
that's
I'm pretty close.
I'm not joking, Matt.
generations
Yeah.
have fought
So
for
As soon as she said
democracy
we can't tune out, I'm
Yeah,
out.
that's right.
Game over. I will say, I have truly, I'm not, this is not a joke. I do not know who this human is.
Yeah, but she's very.
I get the sense that she's from Michigan. I think this is maybe one of the best responses that I've ever seen.
Consider this indictment of the Democrat Party. They had to find someone who was reasonably normal.
Yeah.
And they scoured
Anyone we've ever heard of.
anyone
that's
we've
right.
ever heard of and anyone that we might have even like seen on TV one time.
Yes.
And they came up with the dog catcher from Michigan or whatever. I have no clue
Yeah,
what position she
her
occupies.
Her name, according to the control booth, is Alyssa Slot.
Oh, it's Slot. Actually, she is like a name. She ran,
Yeah.
she's actually, she is a member of the Senate. I didn't even recognize her though.
Is she a member of the Senate?
Yeah,
I feel bad about this.
Slotkin ran. I don't feel bad at all. She, because also that was a close race and that was very frustrating this cycle. But it is funny because like this woman, so she's relatively new. That is also why people don't like recognize her. She's kind of new to her job, and they do try to pick fresh faces.
Yeah.
They did it with Katie Britt last year for the Republicans, and this is the worst job in politics.
Yeah,
It is.
it's awful. You never
So
do it right.
That's why I'm quite impressed with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm also, it's a very moderate speech.
Yes.
It's so moderate, in fact, that it is actually difficult to distinguish most of what she just said
that's
from
right.
what Trump actually
That's what I mean. It's like she's actually attacking the Democrats' policies and pretending they're the Republicans' policies.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Pavel, can you please bring in the basket?
A basket.
Yeah.
Oh my holy angel of mercy! What on earth is that?
That is a lot of fruit.
I'll say.
I had to get the strongest man on this property to even get that thing out there. Pavel, is it heavy? Yes. Can you imagine?
I cannot imagine.
Having
Who
to
could
eat
imagine?
all of that fruit in one day? What about every single day? How many Polish men would we go through? That would be absurd. You want to get all of that nutrition, but you don't want to be sickeningly stuffed with fruit or breaking the bank on an absurdly large basket of healthy food or taking the time it would take to eat everything in that basket. Let me introduce to you Balance of Nature. With Balance of Nature, fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables daily. 31 fruits and veggies to be exact. Drew, can you eat 31 fruits and veggies every day?
You're damn straight I can. I'm not a wimp like you, but I prefer not to. Because it sounds miserable and it drips in my beard. But I can take one of these. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, freeze-dries them, and turns them into powdered capsules. It sounds painful, but take it from me, it is. Take Balance of Nature fruits and veggies every day, and your body will do the rest. I don't want to see that. Do that in the privacy of your own home. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code BACKSTAGE for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of Fiber and Spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code Backstage.
Ow! That hurt.
Because you don't take the balance of nature.
I'm not healthy
You're
enough.
a weakling. That's it.
God, I miss Shapiro. That was quite a display, guys.
So are we cutting back to the trash collector from Michigan, or no? Or not?
No.
The mayor of
I could actually see,
Michigan?
I'm not joking, I have a monitor here, and I could see the audience numbers beginning to plummet.
The minute she was speaking.
Yeah, you know.
But it was, look.
We had just heard that speech. It was a repeat.
Yeah.
So where is Shapiro and Walsh? They're out drinking with the Senate.
Difficult to get out of the House chamber, but they are. We do think there's some chance that they will make it back to Speaker Johnson's office.
I think it's possible. Last year, I was up there. I was actually sitting right behind Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. And Bill Lee, if you're a governor, it turns out you get to keep your cell phone during the State of the Union. Most people do not. And you get a heads up from Secret Service before the president's about to wrap, so you can get out of there before they lock you down. So they lock you down in the House chamber, and you just kind of sit there and schmooze with the people to your right and left. What's a little weird, not if you're sitting as Ben and Matt were with Riley in the speakers gallery, but when you're sitting just with the hoi polloi, with the regular, members guests, you're often sitting next to Democrats. So, some people who might be fuming about the speech, or it's a little bit awkward, but you make small talk, and it takes something like half an hour to get out of there.
Yeah, of course.
Now, happily, because now the Republicans are back in charge in D.C., I think Ben and Matt will be able to broadcast from the Capitol, so it won't take them 5 hours to get out there, and we might be able to hear what it was like in the room. But of all the State of the Unions that I've watched, one in person, all of the rest of them on television, I think that was the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I have to say, it was a bit rambling in places, as Trump speeches can sometimes be, and went longer than it needed to, as Trump speeches almost always do. He's sort of like the modern Martin Scorsese of speech makers. You're like, somewhere in there was a perfectly good 90-minute.
The greatest master of this, of our generation.
However, it was the most fun State of the Union address I've ever seen.
No question.
He was there. It was triumphant. And you said it before, he was enjoying himself. He had some great lines, too. I mean, what a mic drop moment to be able to say, oh, yeah, and Zelensky just called and wants me to make a peace deal with Russia. 1 week ago, people were essentially saying the world order was over.
Yeah.
There's going to be a unified European army. And now he's just getting exactly what he wants.
Less than 1 week ago, Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
And when he said to Zelensky, you don't have the cards, that was true.
Yeah.
You knew that was true when he was saying it. And nobody really asked, what was Zelensky thinking? Even if, there was this idea that it had been some kind of setup, that they were waiting to line and wait for him. But what did Trump have to gain from that? Nothing. Whereas Zelensky spent 40 minutes kind of sighing and rolling his eyes.
Needling them. Provoking JD. He started that part.
Trump remained very gracious to him until that moment when Zelensky said, you are going to feel this. You don't feel it now. Yeah. And he was like, don't tell me. And I was kind of like, ooh, that was a mistake.
There are a couple theories on it. One is that Zelensky wanted there to be a tense moment to spur Europe to greater aid, because he kind of knew that Trump wanted a peace deal. And if Trump negotiates a peace deal with Putin, then that's going to involve concessions from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And Zelensky doesn't want that. The other theory that was going around some of the press was that Zelensky was talking to some of his friends from the past Democrat administrations, many of whom have been integral in American policy in Ukraine, going back to 2014 even, and that maybe they encouraged him not to play nice with Trump. And so then I have this image afterward Zelensky running up to Victoria Nuland like, I will kill you. You are going to make me dead. Like, what did you do to me, woman? And so clearly within 48 hours or something, he's back on the horn to the White House, and it looks like they have a deal.
That was clearly a mistake. And, the thing is, no matter if Biden had negotiated this deal, if that woman who ran for, I can't remember her name, had, Kamala.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I forgot.
But if she had negotiated this deal, same thing would have happened. Putin would have gotten some of the stuff that he'd already stomped on, and that they just would have had to settle for that. There was never going to be, the Ukrainians were never marching on Moscow.
No,
that was not something that could happen.
I find it distasteful that some on the American right now are playing the Putin is the great defender of Christendom.
I hate that.
It's absolute nonsense. Vladimir Putin's the aggressor in the war. He invaded a sovereign nation in Ukraine.
He has missiles pointed at us.
He has nuclear missiles pointed at us right now. He's not our friend. But Ukraine can't win this war.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
That can't be done.
The other, I know we're not allowed to have any historical nuance or anything in here, but some of the territories that we're talking about, most notably Crimea, have been contested for millennia and many centuries at this point, and have historically been part of Russia and have been considered very important to Russia. And so, I know Americans decide they're going to become experts on every issue overnight, but this is a complex issue, and that was kind of Trump's point in the Oval Office. Is look, we're going to have to come to a deal here, unless you want to be like the Democrats and just have it be a meat grinder forever with no end in sight. But if you are going to have a deal, then you need to figure out what the strategic objectives are and the interests, and where is it there.
It's also different in kind than any war that we've seen in our lifetime. I'm not making an age joke, but you actually have seen things like this. Michael and I have not.
Yeah.
This is a war where
the Battle of Lepanto.
This is a war where the casualties are in the seven figures.
Yeah.
America lost something like 5,000 troops in the totality of the war on terror. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians have died in the last 3 years in this war. When we say meat grinder, we're not being rhetorical.
No, it's a World War I kind of stalemate that they're just killing each other. And the other thing about it is, you don't have to make excuses for Putin or say that it's a good thing that he invaded to understand that in these situations, power matters.
Yes.
And who is in power matters, and we're not going in there. We're not putting boots on the ground.
America, and this is the other thing, because the Putin apologists make of him this larger-than-life figure, and they want to say, well, America couldn't beat Putin. Of course America could beat Putin.
Yeah.
Europe could beat Putin if they set their mind to it.
Right.
Europe and America would destroy Putin at risk of nuclear war.
Yeah.
Which is why it will not happen. It will not happen because it cannot happen.
Yep. And just on I don't think this is really cynical, but on a realistic level, China is the threat to America. We are not under threat from Russia. China is the threat. China and Russia have formed an alliance. This is a way of breaking that alliance. It is better for Putin to be friends with us, who will not try to devour him, than friends with China, who will devour him last. And Putin knows that. He knows when he's not looking at Xi and thinking he's a great guy. I look into his eyes and see his soul, and he's going to be good to me. He knows that the price of an alliance with China is Russia ultimately, and he won't have to pay that price to us. And so if we separate them and we have to make a little bit nice to him, it's distasteful. I think it is distasteful, but it may just be necessary because we have to be ready for China. And that's the one thing I think is in Trump's mind in a way that it's not in the minds of our intelligence community. And I don't know why it's not, but it's not. Maybe because the head of our intelligence is named Hein Sai-ko. I don't know.
The one thing that I found disappointing in the foreign policy part of the president's speech is that he didn't talk about the new Trumpistan colony in what was formerly the Gaza Strip. I wanted at least 3 paragraphs.
Gaza.
Magaza International Hotel and Casino. Yeah. Part of that, when that announcement came out, everyone lost their minds, as is often the case when President Trump makes big declarations. And some people still haven't learned it 10 years into this thing. But, when Trump throws something out there, he is often negotiating or speaking past the sale, to use Scott Adams' phrase. And so in this case, why didn't he bring it up? Because just look at the news today of the Arab states coming in and saying, no, hold on, wait a second. We don't want you, maybe we'll be involved in this. And maybe that sort of thing is what Trump was actually after.
Obviously he was. And he was also after putting paid to the two-state solution, which is the dumbest idea that people have clung to for decades. It's like one state called Israel, another state that wants to kill Israel. It'll be perfect. And I think he just avoided that for what you said. He had negotiated them into a position, which we said at the beginning, where he would be able to say to them, okay, what's your idea? You don't want me to build my hotel in Gaza. What's your idea? And now there's
because they were in sort of a stalemate of these two notions, and no one was moving. And then Trump just came in and dropped this wild idea, and everyone sort of just stopped and said, "Wait, what? Wait, hold on. Bibi Netanyahu and others. Wait, hold on. Did I catch that right? We didn't talk about this."
I mean, I was a little surprised he didn't mention it, only because, as we knew they would, the Hamas is violating, not going forward with the ceasefire and has not returned all the hostages. And I assume Israel is going to go back in there and kick some ass. And I think that he probably didn't want to seem to have incited it.
Right.
Yeah. Though he's going to support it, I suspect.
He's going to support it. And it is, at this point, it's a fait accompli.
Yeah,
of course, Israel's going back into the Gaza Strip.
I thought it was, it's funny at the inaugural ball that we were at, they interviewed me on the red carpet and they asked me what I thought of the deal. And I said, well, the deal is terrible, but we know that Hamas is going to break it, and we know that Trump is going to support them when they go back in.
Right.
And that was kind of the setup of the deal, that it was always going to come to this, But he got the win that he needed, so he didn't stand in the way of a ceasefire, which would have been bad for him, and it would have been bad for everybody. But he's now going to support.
Also, in terms of foreign policy, he presented tariffs in a way that was digestible and common sense to people. First of all, I mean, I've been advocating throughout the campaign that really the key phrase here has got to be common sense. That's what I mean, and I'm not the first to notice it. It goes back to Antonio Gramsci and many other political thinkers. But he held on to that. And so when we're talking about free trade or tariff theory or these kind of complex economic concepts, it's a little difficult for even someone who's studied economics to really grasp what he's talking about. And so when he says, look, you guys charge us a lot of money for our products, but you expect us not to charge you a lot of money when you bring your products into our market, which is much more valuable. That's not going to happen. We're going to have tariff parity.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we get into a trade war, I promise you we're going to win.
Yeah.
That is really clear, common sense thinking that doesn't require a degree in economics.
I have to say, I am maybe the only person in America who does not know what the result of the tariffs will be and will openly admit it. But that did make sense to me. I mean, I thought
I thought it was a sensible enough rhetorical argument for something that I think is somewhat nonsensical in practice. I'm completely against the tariffs. I think using tariffs as a form of leverage to get us better trade deals than we might otherwise have, which we've seen President Trump do in the past, is a perfectly good thing to do. But free trade has been very good for America, and the dollar being the standard currency basically of all global trade.
Yeah, that's been good for us.
It is very, very good for us. And that's the thing that you do not want to lose and that you put at risk with this tariff.
But globalist trade has not been so good for us.
Not been good for everyone.
Yeah, the idea that the center of the country is going to be gutted of jobs, but your iPhone is going to cost less because it's made by slave labor has not really worked out for us. He's right. Remember, this is why his first inaugural speech was called Dark, because he talked about American carnage. I was out there during the Biden administration and all the boarded shops and all the people out of work and all the closed factories. It was heartbreaking. Yeah. And I think he was right about that. So if he can bring America back to the place where we support American goods and still can have free trade, I mean, that would be better than the globalist trade that we were dealing with.
Well, I think that if we're going to talk about things that none of us understand, we should bring someone on who does understand some of them, and that is Matt Walsh. And also Ben Shapiro. You guys are at the Capitol. What was the energy like in the room? I mean, it was pretty outstanding from where we were sitting.
Well, I mean, right now we're just wondering why we're here because, I mean, we're exhausted. I mean, it's been a very, very long evening. Yeah. And my annoyance is you sent the two most easily annoyed people in America to this, and now you're bringing us back, and it's 11:35 at night. So
I have not clapped that much in total in my entire life as I did in the room. So it's a lot of clapping. I will say that I thought it was a great speech. I thought, but for me, unfortunately, being in the room, even though it was a really good speech, the big takeaway is just the Democrats, and I'm sure you guys have covered it, but the performance by the Democrats I thought was just disgraceful and ridiculous. And being in the room, I mean, I don't know how much you pick up on camera. I'm sure the one guy standing up and refusing to leave, that certainly made it in. But just constant comments, the little stunts. They're looking down at their phone. I had a woman who was right in front of me down below who was like taking angry selfies of herself and texting them to her friend. I could see that happening. So this is what the lawmakers were busy doing.
Matt, did you photobomb any of the selfies for this Democrat woman's friend? Just like
I did. I got in one of them. I got in one of her that she sent to a friend. But to me, the thing that kind of tells you everything you need to know is that the Democrats sat on their hands and did not clap anything. They didn't clap a child cancer survivor. They didn't clap planting a flag on Mars. They didn't clap, protecting Americans from crime, killing terrorists, and all of that. The only thing they clapped for, was Ukraine. That was the one single applause line from the Democrats, and I think that sort of tells you everything you need to know about the Democrat Party, which is just nothing but
They didn't even clap for their own vote. There was one point when Trump thanked them for voting for Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. They didn't even clap for that. I mean, it really was an impressive show. And they kind of were gradually walking out. Like you could see Bernie Sanders maybe 15, 20 minutes before the end. He gets up and he walks out. You can see a bunch of the Democratic Congress people starting to file out kind of slowly during the actual event. President Trump's energy was really good. I mean, President Trump is happy to be there. He's in a very good mood. Obviously, Republicans love him. They were really pumped. They were really ready to go. A lot of enthusiasm. And I got to say, the Democrats felt dead. They felt dead. I mean, it felt like the air had been sucked out of their side of the room, not just because they were depressed because they lost, but also because there's just no juice to the resistance anymore. It feels as though they have kind of lost their point of opposition. And so they're kind of sitting there in weirdly disparate fashion with signs that read different things, and they're holding them up, and we're supposed to take away from that they're unified. The only points of unity they seem to be able to find in opposition to President Trump were at one point they tried to start a chant of January 6th, which is so played out as to be meaningless at this point.
Gosh.
And then again, when they applauded Ukraine, which again was less about their love of Ukraine and much more about their belief that President Trump is a catspaw of Vladimir Putin. So as far as the speech itself, I think that it was very clear that President Trump was focusing in on two really, really big themes, aside from the tariffs, which I heard you guys talking about. The two big themes that he kept coming back to, and he actually did come back to them multiple times. He actually would go away from them and then come back to them again. Illegal immigration. He beat the border to death tonight. And I think that was actually a really smart strategy because it is the greatest single success of his administration so far. I mean, we were talking to Tom Homan earlier. The stats that he was citing are extraordinary. And when President Trump brought that up and talked repeatedly about the damage that criminal illegal immigrants have done in the country, when he kept going back to that is a huge issue. It is an entire country moving issue. And then the other big issue was, of course, one that is all near and dear to our hearts. I mean, obviously, we all care about illegal immigration, but the one that maybe the DailyWire has taken the lead on as a company more than any other company in America is the trans issue. President Trump spoke about it. He left it. He came back to it. He came back to it repeatedly. And we had the pleasure, Matt and I, of sitting next to Riley Gaines, who, of course, has also been a big sort of character in pushing forward the notion that traditional sex actually is the metric for how we measure human beings in terms of, for example, sports. And the energy in the room for those two issues was extremely high. He gave what I thought was properly short shrift to foreign policy, actually, because he is a domestic policy president. He said we're going to strengthen the military. We're going to rebuild our shipping. We're going to build Golden Dome, right, which is a take on Iron Dome. Even though Iron Dome, for the record, is actually a system for shooting down short-range rockets, and Golden Dome would be presumably a large missile defense system designed for shooting down, say, supersonic, sort of low altitude Chinese missiles. But same difference. He kind of talked about that, but it was all domestically focused, and I think that's totally appropriate for a president who is in fact domestically focused. And I know you guys are talking about the tariffs. It's interesting to see how he's playing the tariffs, and it'll be interesting to see how they materialize. The big question going forward, I think, for both the economy and for President Trump, is whether the key word in the phrase reciprocal tariff is reciprocal or tariff.
Yeah.
So if the key word there is reciprocal, I think that, what he's going to do is what, Jeremy, you were talking about, leverage other countries to lower their own tariffs in order so that we can get our tariffs lower, and then more free trade for everyone, yay, hooray. If the key word there is tariff and not reciprocal, meaning what he actually just likes are the tariffs, economic theory and history tell that is a dicey proposition. And you can see the effects on the stock market almost immediately, right? I mean, you've seen it over the course of the last couple of days alone when the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 1,500 points. So, again, that is a dicey game that he's playing right there. If he's fighting inflation, large scale tariffs tend not to lower inflation; they tend to increase sort of prices of goods and services because you're limiting supply while leaving demand exactly the same, which obviously increases prices. And then the question is just going to be whether it is a leverage play or whether it is a principal play that he sort of likes tariffs and has a vision of the world in which everyone reshores to the United States and we export but we don't import, which, again, I think that is likely to result in some pretty dire economic side effects.
Well, this is to me the most interesting question because the guy is a good poker player and it's hard to read it. On the one hand, there are people, though I know it's unfashionable in our day and age, but there are people who make a serious, principled economic argument for tariffs. And there's a long history of tariffs in the Republican Party, going back to Abraham Lincoln, who said, give me a tariff, I'll give you the greatest country on earth. Now, that obviously fell out of favor in the middle to the latter part of the 20th century. But there is a world in which, and Trump has been, I think, advancing this view, that he really believes, as a matter of principle, in tariffs, and many of his economic advisors do as well. However, Trump is a deal maker. Right. He has promoted free trade, global free trade, for many years of his career. And so there is also a view that he's kind of bluffing. But the thing is, if he's bluffing, he's doing so in an extraordinarily persuasive way, which is his great strength on the global stage, is his unpredictability. So if you are an adversary of the United States or a trading partner of the United States that's kind of maybe ripping us off a little bit, and you're trying to read Trump right now, at least 10 to 20% of you has to think, the guy might just love tariffs, and I better play my cards real cautiously.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, I don't know. I'm a simple man. When you tell me that they're putting a 275% tariff on milk going out, but we can't put anything on, I think, well, why not? I don't understand why we can't play. It's all part of Trump's "we're not your daddy" strategy. Like, we are not here to just support the world, and we have been treated like that, especially by Europe. But we have been treated like that by the country. We're supposed to show up, but they don't have to show up for us. And Trump's, maybe garish, maybe a little boorish to say, what's in it for us all the time? But what is in it for us? We are a sovereign nation.
I mean, I think what's in it for us is actually a pretty good pitch. What's in it for us is a pretty good pitch.
Yeah.
I think the thing that we do have to remember, however, is that we are also, there is something in it for us, which is namely that our gigantic national debt is actually funded by other countries who are buying our bonds. I mean, so it turns out that actually there are two sides to the story. It's not just the United States funding everybody else. The reality is that everybody else is also funding us by holding the dollar as the global reserve currency and then holding bonds that they can easily transfer into dollars. So again, economics is a bit of a sensitive game. And the one thing, and this is the thing that I really fear for President Trump's administration, the one thing that can send things south, because the Democrats are so gone. They're so gone. I mean, that's what you can see in the room. They have lost it. They've lost it. When it comes to the trans issue, they've completely lost it. When it comes to illegal immigration, they've completely lost it. They're just so far from common sense. The one thing that could really hurt Trump is an economic downturn. It's the one thing he cannot afford. No president can afford it. President Trump more than most, because he's seen as a pro-business president. And so anything that can be done to avoid an economic downturn is the thing that he really has to do. The good news about Trump, I think, is that even if he loves tariffs, like adores them, President Trump also, even more than that, likes good headlines and does not like bad headlines. And so if the economy starts to go south, this is one area where President Trump will stick and move.
Though, again, even on that point, Trump seems to, in recent weeks, and even in that speech tonight, be preparing the American people for some potential short-term economic challenge. He says, look, it's going to be a little tough in the short term. But so, again, I don't exactly know how to read it, because that might just be him bluffing really well to say, no, I am really serious about tariffs. I understand the
implications. I don't know that Donald Trump bluffs. I think that Donald Trump changes. I don't think that Donald Trump is fundamentally ideological. He fundamentally wants to make a deal. And so I think that one of the reasons that he is so unpredictable is because everyone assumes that there is some other motive at play, when in fact it may just be as simple as, the thing's unfair, I'm going to put tariffs on it. And if somebody comes back to me and there's a better deal to be made in the future where I take the tariffs off because something good's happening, then that'll be the thing that I'm for. I don't know that Trump is sophisticated. And I don't say that as a knock on Trump. I'm actually saying it kind of as a good thing. Like, I just don't think that he is. Yeah, I don't think that he is that.
I don't know. I think he has this way of looking at things in a general way that seems unsophisticated, but is not. He can't have won as often as he's won and be unsophisticated. I think what he does is he thinks differently. He thinks in a Gestalt style that everybody calls gut politics, but it's really a way of seeing the world in total. And sometimes I do believe that sometimes even he hasn't got his whole strategy worked out. Look, there are going to be some bad headlines. You cannot bring down inflation without increasing unemployment. There are going to be bad headlines. And I notice nobody's talking about unemployment because it always goes up when inflation goes down. And so no one is talking about it. So they're waiting, lying in wait so that when it goes up, they can hit him with it. He's going to have some bad headlines. Happened to Reagan when he brought down inflation. The unemployment went up and it cost him his majorities in the legislature. But still, I do think he has an idea of what he's doing. And I don't think he bluffs. I think he makes a deal and takes an extreme position, knowing that's not where he's going to end.
Right.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with that. I don't see this as a bluff at all. I mean, it might change. That might be the case that it changes. I certainly don't think that it's a bluff because, I mean, I agree with Drew that I think Trump thinks his great appeal is that he thinks in a very simple way, which is not to say simplistic, but I say simple. I consider myself to be a simple guy in a lot of ways, which is just, you look at an issue like this. Well, why should they slap us with higher tariffs than we put on them? I mean, you did it to us. Why shouldn't we do it to you? It's the same thing with Zelensky. He visits the White House and it's like, hey, we gave you all of this. And so if we're going to give you this, then we expect something in return. In that case, it's kind of similar to I say to my kids all the time, you're in my house. You're under my roof. It's my food. You're going to play by my rules. Every father says
I gave you javelin missiles, and you're going to listen to me.
Right, exactly. I say that to my kids all the time. I give you all the weapons, so you're going to play by my rules. And I think most people hear that and think, yeah, well, it kind of makes sense. Like, why not? And that's the way that I look at it.
By the way, credit to Zelensky for recognizing that he really, really needed to put out a statement before the speech.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yep.
Like, Zelensky blew that meeting on Friday in a massive, massive way. I went through on my show, like, the entire details of that meeting, like, went through all 50 minutes of that particular meeting. And Zelensky really blew it, and then he continued to blow it. And then today, he came back, and he said the thing he was supposed to say, which is, we're very, very grateful for all the support. We're ready to sign a rare earths mineral deal. We're trying to get to the end of this war. And so tonight, instead of President Trump spending half the speech shellacking Zelensky in Ukraine, instead, President Trump did what he does, which is he pocketed the victory. And again, this goes back, I think we're all saying very similar things here. I don't think that President Trump, when it comes to these policies, is sitting there thinking, okay, if I move my rook here, they're going to move their knight here. And then if they move their knight here, I'm going to move my bishop here, checkmate. Like, that's not how President Trump thinks. The way that he thinks is much more like, I'm going to do this thing. And if you respond in the way that I want, then we can make a deal. And if you respond in the way I don't want, I'm going to hit you. And you know what? Most policy can actually get done fairly well that way. I will say, I did enjoy the break with tradition. That was pretty evident from the beginning of the speech. I think this is what he meant when he said, remember, he put out this Truth Social in all caps. I'm going to speak plainly tonight. And everybody's like, I don't know what that means. Like, when has he ever not spoken plainly? Where is the subtlety, my man? But I think what he meant, I'm going to speak plainly. What he meant was, if I feel like banging on the Democrats, I'm just going to bang on the Democrats. When he started off, it was hysterically funny. When he started off right near the top, and he's like, listen, I've been doing this for 5 years. 5 years, 5 times I've come to you. They never clapped once. I don't even care anymore. Like, I'm sorry, that's really funny. And it cuts through the bullshit of the entire sort of evening, which is, propped up as the sort of almost post-imperial event. I've spoken on the program 1,000 times about how much I generally hate State of the Union addresses. I will say it was kind of funny because it felt like kind of a post-State of the Union, State of the Union.
But I'll go a step further.
It was kind of like,
I don't think that it was just funny, although it was certainly funny. I don't think it was just plain speak and shellacking the Democrats, although it was certainly that. It was also a perfect trap that he put them in. Because once he said, they cannot clap for me no matter what, he took all the tools that they had. This is the reason all their shenanigans basically fizzled out in the first 3 minutes. Because what was left once he had already established, here's how the game's going to get played.
When he promoted no tax on tips, a policy that the Democrats stole from him and campaigned on.
That's right.
And they couldn't even applaud for it.
Yeah.
They looked absolutely ridiculous.
Had he not made those remarks at the beginning of the speech, they would have clapped for the 13-year-old boy.
By the way, I agree that Trump has a good gut and everything like that. But I do think he also has strategic sophistication. Maybe that's one area where I disagree. That was clearly a trap. And it worked very well.
I don't mean that he doesn't have strategy, but it's not the same kind of strategy. But I can't remember which one of you guys said it, but he's not talking about a chess game. He's more talking about a kind of, like I said, a gestalt, an atmosphere that he knows how to move through, and he does it really expertly.
Well, fellas,
he's also really funny. He's really funny.
He's just hilarious.
It was very in the room. It was very funny. There were a lot of things that we were chuckling at in the room for sure.
Yeah, I'll say that this was my first time I've been in a room actually in the room for a Trump speech, and I knew he was a really funny guy, but that's one thing you appreciate when you're in the room. It's just kind of the energy of it and sort of the aside comments and. I don't know, being in the room, you kind of...
The little hand motions. Yeah, at the very beginning, they're clapping for him, and he actually did the Trump dance. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys could see that on camera.
No, we didn't.
But he actually did. When they were giving like the big ovation, I don't know if they're panning in the crowd or whatever, he literally stepped to the side of the podium and did this thing.
Yeah. I noticed this.
And it was really funny, like really funny.
At the MSG rally right before the election, I noticed it was the first time I'd seen him in person, I think, certainly that close, but I think maybe in person. And he gets up on stage, and I realized, I get it now. He's Elvis. That's his thing. He's actually Elvis. That's what it's not that he's Reagan. It's not that he's Bush. He's Elvis. And there was, speaking of these great little moments and these great little asides, there's one that no one is talking about, but it killed me, which is that Trump was talking about illegal immigration, and he goes, and these people, coming over, murderers, human traffickers. And then he just points to the Democrats in the room, like, these murderers, human traffickers. And I thought, shoe fits, man.
Truly the most entertaining State of the Union
no question.
that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, I had a kind of sadness watching it because Donald Trump's not a young man.
No.
Like this, we are in the end of whatever this is. And 4 years is a long time. We get to enjoy the ending of it.
8 years with a third term.
Yeah.
Thank you. But it was the first time that I felt a kind of nostalgia for Donald Trump, and I was feeling it while he's still president, because we will never see anything like this again.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's going to be the last great administration of my lifetime, but it may be the last great administration of your lifetime too, because they don't come along.
Though I am hopeful for the reign of Baron Octavian Augustus Trump, and I don't know if it'll be exactly like this, but Augustus was actually better than Julius in many ways, so we'll see.
Fellas, I know it's late in D.C. and you have shows to do tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for coming back after fighting your way through whatever mob there was and signing autographs for Congress people. And Boebert, I know there's just all kinds of weirdness that you guys had to deal with. But it was a good night.
Yeah, very.
A marvelous night.
Marvelous night.
Thanks to all of our DailyWire.com subscribers for hanging out with us, making it possible for us to do this work. We do have one fun thing going on, and that is that Ben is leading this crusade to get President Trump to consider pardoning Derek Chauvin of the federal charges that he was convicted of. Won't mean that he gets out of jail, will mean that he has to go to a state prison, but it will still be the beginning of correcting this horrible injustice. And we have a petition at pardonderek.com. We'd love for you to sign it, as we're letting President Trump know that this is still an important issue that he's given all these great pardons already in his time as president, but there is one guy who's obviously still been left on the field, and that's Derek Chauvin. So head over to pardonderek.com and add your name to our petition today. And we'll see you guys back here next time for Daily Wire Backstage.